Am I the asshole for setting boundaries with my son's fiancée and refusing to accept her as a family due to her constant manipulation and pressure? Original post. I, 41M, have 2 kids with my ex-wife, 42F, a son John, 22, and daughter Sally, 20. I'm remarried to my wife, 28. I'm very close with my kids. My son is engaged to Abby. She seems nice but has been a bit pushy trying to create relationships with me and my wife, though she's also awkward with her. Abby isn't close to her family. She told us many stories why, and while some of her complaints don't seem awful, it's not my place to judge and I didn't live it so I can't know anyway. We've tried to be welcoming but Abby has forced her way into some family traditions where she wouldn't have been invited, and some where no one outside of a specific family would have. She has been calling Sally sis since they were only dating a few months, has an odd sister/mother-in-law thing she does with my wife, and the one I'm not a fan of, wants me to be like father to her. Not because we've clicked or anything. We are very different people. Not saying that in a bad way, just saying it's not based on how we get along or anything. My kids and I have a tradition when they come over that we have a private catch-up in my office study before they leave, which is now even more important to them because while they both get along well with my wife, they don't want to have personal conversations around her yet. Abby asked if we could talk, and after I explained the tradition, John later asked that I do it, saying she'd never had a caring conversation with her dad. We compromised that I didn't include her in the tradition but did join the 2 of them for coffee and let her talk. Then she started calling me dad. They weren't even engaged yet. John pulled me aside and begged me to give her that. Laid this whole thing on me about me always being the dad she always wanted right in front of her and she just wanted that. Told me she cried watching me and Sally together. She still gives me random hugs. I'm a lucky dad. I didn't like it but I do feel bad so I gave her that. She wants me to walk her down the aisle in the father-daughter dance. I don't want to walk her down, and I walk with a cane so dancing is hard. At my own wedding I only danced twice. John is begging for me to do one, preferably the aisle. They came over Sunday. John and I were talking. I thought to address it, when Ab walked in without knocking, asking if he'd told me yet. I asked what John said she wanted me to say about having a second daughter now in my speech and how I loved her. I just looked at him. She asked if I'd do the walk and dance for Sally. I said of course. She yelled she's my daughter too and I said it will never be the same, Sally is my actual daughter. I tried to explain that I'd talk about her being a happy addition to the family and I love how happy she makes Jack, which I thought was a good compromise, but she started crying. John apologized and they left, but he called me when they were home, nearly begging me to. Ada because I won't lie and say I love her or she's my daughter. Update 1. I had planned on writing this sooner but life got in the way in a couple of really good ways. But people were helpful and asked for updates, and I have a surprise-free day, so here it goes. On Mother's Day my kids and their partners go to visit my ex-wife. So it turns out my ex-wife and Abby are a lot closer than I realized. She calls her mom, which is part of where this comes from. Also apparently my ex has been egging it on. On Mother's Day they were talking about the wedding and I guess whenever Abby referred to me it was as dad. My son apparently told her to let it go, which led to yelling. Abby about deserving to be my daughter. Ex telling her that she's right. Son telling her that I am trying and she should be realistic about things. Sally telling her I only had one daughter, which was apparently a response to Abby saying to her that as my daughters, they should be united. According to my son Abby was crying, according to Sally she was crying and yelling and kicked something before going to her room, and Sally told me she went off on her mom, but will not elaborate so I don't know what was actually said. But knowing Sally, hoo boy. Around 2 a.m. I got a text from Sally's partner's phone saying Abby really is great, she hasn't been perfect but you should give her a chance and you will learn to love her. I saw it when I woke up. I tried to text her back but was blocked, so I called Sally but they were driving. They stopped by my place later that day because I am on the way and my daughter prefers my liquor and cooking and they told me about the night before. At the end I asked to speak to her partner alone. I asked if I had done something to upset her. She was confused and I told her I was blocked. She said I wasn't but checked her phone and I was, and I said it was after her message and she asked what message. I showed her, it was not on her phone anymore. At that point we brought in Sally and caught her up, neither of them were happy. A couple of days later, John and Abby dropped by unannounced. Not something we really do in this family, but okay fine, I had mad salmon, does not take long to cook. I cook 2 more, and my wife serves while I make drinks. The entire night was Abby trying to bring up the wedding. John trying to change the subject, Abby not allowing that. We talk logistics because I am helping them get some good deals through some professional contacts I have when finally she just says so I was talking to mom, She said that you can walk me down the aisle and she'll do the dance, or you can dance and she'll walk. It's your call, but you need to choose soon. I reiterated that I could not dance. She tried arguing that I had danced a little at my wedding, but I made it clear that is different, and did not feel comfortable walking her. She got upset and said, "Mom loves me, why can't you?" I felt bad but couldn't lie. I pointed out that she had John who loved her, my ex-wife, friends, she had people who love her. She said, "But other than ex-wife, those aren't my parents." I said, "Neither am I." She was very emotional, so my wife and I gave them a few minutes. My son and I were alone later. He looked exhausted. He said the problem was that after Mother's Day Abby had called Sally and kept saying they are both my daughters, that I did not get to be close with one but not both, and that it was them against me. But at that one Sally cried havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Things were said, grievances were aired. John had to hang up before it got worse, but I guess Abby was shaken, but there was a new problem. Abby had decided in her head that I did not mean what I have been saying and was just doing it for Sally. He told me he would handle it. Ron Howard. He did not. So now I get text messages from Abby every couple of days acting like we have a secret relationship Sally doesn't know about. She even called herself my secret daughter and lolled. She invited my wife to lunch, saying 2 out of 3 of his girls going out. She has even started using the pressure of showing up at events like a recent barbecue to play a certain image. She hugs me more and holds it, wants to take pictures with just me or my wife and I, but always a few with just me to post with captions I do not like. My wife is getting especially annoyed because of how she is with her. I guess Abby surprised her with Father's Day plans for me that had to be shut down. As it is, she still inserted herself into the day, but she has a soft spot for her, and when Abby gets emotional she caves. My wife is a sweetheart. I asked him if he was upset with me and he said no, he just wished it was different. He said we're good, but he's worried he and Sally aren't, which is when I took the advice of some people and suggested premarital counseling. He said he would talk about it. Abby is insisting Sally go to her fitting. That shop should pay-per-view that potential Royal Rumble because Sally is not holding her feelings back anymore. I told him Sally loves him and I'll talk to her, but for now it is stressful all around. Abby driving my wife crazy with her ideas for what my girls should be doing, driving me crazy with dad-daughter content, drove Sally to the edge, and oh yeah, last night sent me an email with 3 styles of father-daughter dances and song options, so I'm not feeling any more respected or heard than before. The 6 of us have barely been in the same room in order to let things calm down since Father's Day, which was great until it was a shit show. Sorry this is so long, with all the craziness this is still the abridged version. We are supposed to meet Friday. Sally's partner and I have a bet going about how bad it will go. So onward and upward. I hope you fathers had a less dramatic day than I did, and by any chance does anyone know exactly how bad of a crime I need to commit to enter witness protection? Just curious. Update 2. I have gotten requests for updates on my situation, and as I enjoy a refreshing mojito and my wife her mojito, life feels good and the perfect time to amuse the world with my pain and familial drama. Plus a cousin of mine who apparently reads these and knows my situation gave me the convincing argument of, dude, you can't keep people hanging. And how can I argue with that airtight argument? I apologize for how long this is. A lot has happened. My wife's pregnancy is going well. Keeping her as stress-free and pampered as possible has been my focus. It is such a different experience this time, both because of how much more involved I can be and how much better a relationship I have with my wife than I had with my ex. My daughter Sally has been great, even her partner has been great, helping with the nursery or driving her around when I can't. My wife doesn't know because it is a surprise, but my son has been building a crib for the baby, modeled after the one I built for him and his sister, to show my wife his support. My son is a good man, and he is still in there. He just has a soft spot for Abby. Which I guess gets us to the part of the movie where Godzilla shows up and starts busting up buildings. So I called a family meeting with my kids to talk about the situation. Told John his sister was only doing wedding activities she wanted to and that the guilting request needed to stop, that this was hurting his relationship with his sister. Sally was happy I said it so she did not have to yet again. I told him if he did not stop her from messaging me I would block her with a bluntly honest explanation why. We got a lot out, John seemed to understand, but then a few days later they insisted on coming to talk. Sally and I decided we would get everything out. So all of us ate at our place. Abby started in immediately about baby shower stuff and I told that is the kind of thing we wanted to talk about. I told her that I understood she has been trying to fill a hole that she has, that she thought she was getting a father, a second mother, she calls my ex-wife mom apparently, and a sister. I told her it was still possible but that she needed to start listening to us. I told her that for the sake of family we would give her a fresh start, if she agreed that moving forward she would respect our boundaries. My daughter did not love this idea but loves her brother and was willing to try. Abby tried to say that since we were starting over we could define what the relationship would be and just be family. We told her we were not ready for that it needs to happen organically. She got mad that I am closer with my daughter's partner, which is true but we just get along, and that she deserved it for trying so hard. My daughter said something about trying things we actually want. She ran to our bathroom, he ran after her. After a while I checked on him. I could hear her repeating, "This is not what I wanted." My wife, daughter, and her partner went out to the patio to give them privacy and salvage the night. After a bit I got a text saying they had just left. I checked in with him the next day and he said they talked more at home and she understood. For a couple of weeks things were good. The text stopped except the occasional wedding question, since it was getting closer. She stopped pushing herself on my wife and Sally, and we thought was involving us in less in wedding planning out of respect, since as it was they only got the venue at the rate they did because of my professional connections and they know I was willing to help but not interested in helping plan, even if I'm good at event planning. But then I got a call from the venue telling me the card I used had been declined. Now this is a specific card I use for big purchases because of the miles, so I knew it had a high limit. That was how I learned that they had changed dates by 2 months despite being informed I would still be out much of the money because it was too close to the date. I was furious. I mean, I have been lucky in life financially but I am not blow off deposits like nothing wealthy. Called my son, said he needed to get his ass to the house, just him. They both came. When they arrived I opened the door. She actually started with, "Dad." I think I just replied, "You have got to be fin kidding me," and walked toward the table. Abby had the nerve to ask where dinner was. My response was not polite as I made it clear that was not why they were here. I hoped my son would not lie to me so I asked what was going on with the venue. She started going into wedding details but my son interrupted to tell me they postponed because my ex-wife was unavailable because of a surgery and he had not told me because he was putting money together to pay the lost money himself, and he had just reached out to guests to let them know. And that is when Abby's mouth opened. We have extra time to work on our dance. Now during this time my wife came home, and I was walking her toward the bedroom when Abby said that. My pregnant wife with me said, calmly, "I have different feelings about that and will elaborate further shortly," or something like that. Then I laid my wife down and got her water, turned on her symphonic covers of popular songs and walked back to the table and said something like, "You are out of your fee-in mind, have you ever been listening?" I made it clear I was done with this nonsense, we all were. And kind of lost it asking she did not hear us last time because her head was up her ass. She was stunned silent, "What a beautiful sound," and looked at me while I, admittedly with little filter, explained what Sally and I thought of our time with her and her attempts to force us to love her without even getting to know us. She started crying and stood up and shouted, "Then what was this even for?" John asked what she meant, if she meant them, and he started to freak out. She was frantic and said she meant delaying the wedding. Because, and I'm pouring another drink to write this, it was a ploy. My ex-wife and her decided if I had more time I would come around. Apparently my ex told her not to worry about the money because I am loaded. She has always been bitter. I make so much more than I did when we were married, as if that is out of spite rather than my career arc. I think she did that on purpose, frankly. But she not only told me that lie, she and my ex told John as well. He was distraught. Repeating, "You lied to me," as she tried to spin it, but he was letting it out about how much he has defended her and covered for her, and she lied to him too. She was defensive and blamed my ex for telling her things and me for being stubborn. She yelled, "Why can't I just call him dad?" And finally, after so long, I heard John respond, "Because he is not your effing dad." She started crying and something about his being the one that told she could call me that, and he said he told her she might be able to eventually, but he had told her again and again to slow down. She started sobbing and went to sit on her chair but missed and fell on the floor. Appreciating physical humor to break the tension, I admittedly chuckled and hid my mouth behind my drink. This all led to a lot of sobbing. I said I needed to check on my wife, and as I walked out she was repeating, "I just want him to be my dad too." I came out and he was walking her to the door and apologized. I said not to. They left. He came over a few days later and said they had a long talk at home. He even asked her if she would have dated him if there was never a chance of being in the family. He believed her when she said yes, but she admitted I was a big draw as well. I was the kind of dad she always wanted. My relationship with Sally is what she always wanted, and the way she said it gave John doubts that she loves him for him. I talked about marriage counseling, how his mother and I tried it, and, while it did not save us, it provided clarity and an impartial voice. I pointed out they both like coming to me, but I cannot be impartial, and if they are trying then they need to do it for real. Abby texted asking if I was the one who suggested therapy. I responded with, "Does it matter if John wants to?" She asked why it was so bad. She wants to know what I think, and I just said John is the man whose opinion should matter most to her. They fought due to the text. She agreed to the counseling and the wedding has been postponed. I may have done a dance. So they are in counseling. He said she struggles, but I obviously do not know details. She is pressing for me and Sally to go to a session with her. Sally told her she did not want to hear Sally unfiltered, and I am not interested. Abby has been leaving Sally alone. She stopped texting me except for the occasional general question, which includes some attempt to go deeper. My wife still occasionally spends time with her because she's very into her pregnancy, more so than I like, but it is my wife's call. So that is where we are. Sorry it was so long, but alcohol makes for a poor editor. Update 3. I was told I should do updates here. People have been asking me to and to get into what went down on Father's Day and at their mother's house. I have been extremely busy these last few months, but am enjoying my temporary unemployment and thought of this account because of the recent Thanksgiving drama. I will do an update and then we'll share what happened earlier. Oh, and to whomever made the joke that Abby finally got me to dance, that made me laugh. I shared that with the family. My time has been largely caring for my wife. I tend to dote, I know. We are having a boy. We are really excited, though neither of us really had gender preference. I have raised both and both experiences were wonderful. Now we are discussing names, who we are going to honor. I thought everything had been quiet, but recently found my wife crying and found out I was wrong. Given how busy I have been with work, and my wife knowing I would be free again once we got into this month, my wife has kept this to herself. Apparently Abby has been pushing for one Thanksgiving this year. Things have been quiet with Abby. My son said the wedding blowing up woke her up, and that therapy had been helping. But then this. My understanding is that while John has been talking less with his mother because of all that happened, Abby did the opposite. From my wife's telling, Abby dropped by one day with my ex-wife. My wife intensely dislikes my ex-wife because of lies she's spread about my first marriage ending due to infidelity with her, despite there being no infidelity and the linear nature of time making it impossible for us to have slept together back then. Before anyone asks, my ex-wife does not actually think there was infidelity. I would get into that, but I am sure I would sound biased. Anyway, my wife looked at our camera app, saw who it was and called my daughter. Apparently the two of them were keeping things from me because I was working 18-hour days and they did not want me dealing with anything else. I wish they had not done that, but I appreciate the thought. I am really lucky to have such caring people around me. My daughter called her mom and said something that made them leave in a hurry. She will not tell me what, but she smiles when I ask. I called John, but he was dealing with some hard work news, so I just was there for him and left the other alone. The next day Abby came back, alone this time. My wife saw it was her and asked her what she wanted through the door. Abby said to apologize. My wife let her in, she is too nice, and after a nice talk Abby asked about the whole family getting together for Thanksgiving. My wife said of course, she assumed as much. A couple of days later in our group chat we were discussing details, who brings what, and Abby asks what else is needed. I say John already committed and she asked what about my ex-wife, what should she bring? In the time I have known Abby she has never made an intentional joke that funny, so I asked what she was talking about and she mentioned the whole family comment, and my daughter and I both asked what made her think we counted her as family. She actually replied, she is my family. I don't have a dad who wants me, just a mom, and my mom deserves to be with family on Thanksgiving. Sally replied, well, we'll miss you and John then. Abby asks how she can say that. Sally asks how she can be so stupid. John says not to call her stupid and I say that is fair, but there is no real way she thought my wife thought she meant my ex-wife. At this point my wife had filled me in. And then, this is so stupid. She uses my son's phone to add my ex-frigging wife to the group chat. She then thanks us for the invitation and asks what she can bring. As I was typing my daughter beats me to it and asks what she thinks she is doing. She knows she is not welcome, but says it less politely. My wife types, you could not have thought she was included when I said family. Abby responded that she was not coming as my family but as hers. Sally let her mom have it. She already is not talking to her much and said if my ex-wife is there then she is not. I mentioned there was never a chance X was going to come and said I understand Abby and John wanting to go to their mom's house so she is not alone. John typed, plans not definite, we'll let you know. He has since told me that he is not going to go to his mom's place but wanted to tell Abby alone first. All I can think about is the comment about not having a dad who wants her, because it means she is still thinking about me as a dad, I believe. Just a negligent one. I mentioned that to my son and he said he noticed it too and had brought it up at therapy, because family is such a frequent topic, though I obviously do not know the details. Wow, I thought this would be brief but that was a lot. I will get into the crazy stories later if there are people seeing this who want me to. I do not know how posting from here works in terms of anyone seeing it, but this has been good to get out. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Someone needs to explain sunk cost fallacy to John. I genuinely cannot believe he is still with her after the sheer volume of times she has disrespected him, his boundaries, and your family. Maybe this was back in an earlier post, but has anyone really taken the time to reason with him that there are other women out there and he deserves so much better than this kind of relationship? OOP, I had a talk when this started. So did his sister. After the blow-up with the wedding, his sister and I took him out for a game and some time to really talk after. That was when he apparently demanded counseling. I am happy that for now marriage is on hold, at least. He is seeing her a bit more honestly, but is still too optimistic, in my view. OOP needs to let his wife know not to let Abby in when he is not home. OOP. I have asked my wife to never let her in if I am not here after last time. Well, actually I had already asked her, but after the last incident my wife has agreed. You are exactly correct that she takes advantage of my wife's kindness, though once our boy is here I think she will be very protective and will hold strong. I have told John that Abby will not be holding our baby, at least for the foreseeable future. OOP and his daughter need to have a serious talk with his son about Abby. OOP. His sister and I had a serious conversation with him a little after everything blew up. It seems to be what inspired both his demand for counseling and putting the marriage on hold. He is better about seeing her honestly. His sister said something about Abby having similarities to their mother, which would have been fighting words from anyone else, and I saw the temper that rarely comes out. But then he listened because she clearly put thought into it. I never thought about it. I am proud to have kids smarter than me. I know my boy doesn't come off as a genius in these posts, and fair enough in that department, but professionally he is brilliant. She laid her reasoning out in excruciating detail. He listened though because she was not enjoying it at all. It was sincere. Some seem to have clicked because since that talk he has been different with her. I just am not getting my hopes up. Commenter 2. When two crazies are feeding off each other's crazy, they can start thinking anything is possible. I have a feeling that even if your son leaves her, she's not going to go away peacefully. Her and your ex sound like peas in a pod, unfortunately. OOP, my daughter really went at him pointing out their similarities. She made her case well and thankfully it shook him up. I caught my wife cheating after 20 years of love, so I confronted her affair partner and ended his marriage. Now my life is in shambles. I didn't notice the signs that were there. Here are a handful that come to mind. She began sending strange late-night texts. She frequently went out for drinks with her pals. I was happy that she was being friendly, even if this was not her usual behavior. She attended yoga once a week, but it appears that she was not compensated because she assisted with setup and cleanup and the instructor was one of her coworkers. In my opinion, she was also quite rigid for someone who practiced yoga. Callers who are unknown hang up. If we were near each other's phones, we would frequently answer them. She had an unidentified caller on multiple occasions who would end the conversation as soon as I responded. Although we received a lot of spam calls, the calls were typically from telemarketers or debt collectors trying to locate the number's prior owner. It's rarely a hang-up. I was not expected to return until tonight because I work out of town. Tomorrow was our scheduled departure for a 2-week road trip. I came home yesterday afternoon because work was sluggish. Since we've been so busy this summer with family and friends, this trip was meant to offer us some alone time. I didn't recognize the truck in my driveway when I got home. Recently, my neighbor inquired about my opinion of the new truck, but I assumed he was wrong and didn't give it much thought. I had a horrible instinct as soon as I saw the truck. The feeling was there, and it was powerful, even though I loved and trusted my wife. I crept to the window of our bedroom on the side of the house. It was open, and as I approached I could hear them. My worst suspicion was validated when I peered out the window. On my bed they were straight there, nude. I turned to leave. I've been resisting the temptation to do something I'll later regret. Right now, I'm having a hard time caring what happens to me. I spent the night in my family's cabin and drank all that was there. I was about to confront her on my way home today, but I changed my mind. I'm not prepared. Anger is all I can feel. Violence is all I can think about. Right now, I'm not in a good enough state to see her. I'm currently back at the cabin. I've spent the last hour gazing at a 60-ounce bottle of rum. I don't want to become wasted and make poor choices, but I do want to get wasted and forget this. I am aware that this is a pivotal time in my life and that what I do in the days ahead will determine how I live the rest of my days. I am there. I need assistance. I'm contacting strangers because I'm not ready to talk to friends or relatives. F this planet. Edit. The rum will remain nearby for the time being, but I have made the decision not to consume it. My brother is on his way and should be here in a few hours, according to the phone call I made. My wife just texted me to tell me how much she loves me and how excited she is for our trip. I still haven't replied. In addition to my brief update, I wanted to clarify a few remarks and queries that continued to come up. I feel much better today, if you can't tell. The pain subsided almost entirely. Although I still feel like I've been hit in the stomach, I've started to look ahead. I don't think this is correct. Am I just incredibly resilient, or is this a sign of things to come? To shed some light on the queries and remarks I've received, I've included some cliff notes. When I mentioned wife and best friend, I meant the dual roles my wife and I had in our relationship. I didn't even know the other guy, let alone consider him my best friend. I didn't get a good look at him, but based on my fleeting impression and the fact that I saw his car, I don't think it's someone I know. We are childless. However, we intend to have them shortly. We recently sold our home, and when the new owners move in September, we plan to relocate closer to my place of employment. Like he did for me, I will express my gratitude to my neighbor in a subtle way. After a long work travel, I must admit that coming home to Willow P may be one of the worst things. I sincerely apologize for what occurred to you. As for us, we're just getting started, so grab a seat, and let's get started with the first update. My brother and I had a lengthy conversation when he got there. He has been my actual best friend, and I've come to learn that I should never forget that and that he will always support me without passing judgment, just as I would support him. Despite the fact that we occasionally argue, he truly sets the bar for what true friendship is. I chose to reply to my wife's text yesterday night as I was meant to be at home. It made sense for me to just be texting her because we are not permitted to have phones on the premises. She is aware that I may easily slip in a few texts. I informed her in writing that I would not be able to call her until the end of the weekend because I had to travel to one of my company's remote locations. I informed her that I will reschedule after canceling all of the reservations. I rented a romantic bed and breakfast on the vineyard, and she said she could bring her best friend over this weekend. I was aware that she didn't want me to believe that her best buddy would be attending. Since it was non-refundable, I informed her that I had already given it to my brother and his wife, who would reimburse me in a month. I canceled every reservation this morning, with the exception of the romantic one. I'm going with my brother. Luckily, the hotel allowed us to move from the honeymoon suite to a 2-bedroom. This just ended up being a long overdue fishing excursion with my brother because there is a really great lake and boat rentals close by. I am therefore free this weekend. That reduced my worry and gave me more time to reflect because I won't have to write or speak to her for a few days. Right now, I'm considering getting a divorce. There's really no other way for me to see it. My brother is in favor of this, however he has requested me to talk to someone for a few weeks. On Monday, his wife is willing to speak with me through a friend of hers who works as a couples counselor. At least it might help me sort out some of this muddle, but I don't see it changing my mind. In order to at least get ready for what I believe is inevitable, I am also starting to talk to lawyers and taking a lot of advice from this place. I want to do it correctly. I don't think she would try to cheat on me, but I also don't think she would try to do so I think I should be ready for anything. That was a brief update, but it gives us a glimpse into the OP's current thoughts. Let's move on to the following update, which is quite extensive and contains a wealth of information. Now, let's go on to that. The last few days have seen a lot of events. To go to the Tibetan breakfast on the vineyard, my brother, Matt, and I drove for over 5 hours. I am really grateful that he has supported me during this time. It helped me get my thoughts straight, although it was more of a venting session. Our fishing trip wasn't very successful. The proprietor of the B&B provided us with some food after we both caught a few trout that we had to release because of their size. Those were quite successful. We took a car back to Matt's house on Sunday. He lives almost an hour away from my home in the town next door. Jen, Matt's wife, was waiting for us when we got there, and we all sat and opened a bottle of white wine that was stored in the cooler. For me, the weekend officially ended at this point. Jen informed me that she chose to spy on my wife while we were abroad. She informed me that the man spent the entire night in my house on Friday, but she arrived on Saturday morning just as he was about to leave. She located the apartment where he resided after following him home. On Saturday night, while she was texting me to tell me how much she loved and missed me, my wife stayed over there. Jen claimed to be dividing her time between stalking my wife and visiting relatives in my town. She claimed to have caught my wife on Sunday morning as she was leaving his apartment and snapped a few photos of them cuddling and kissing before she got into her car. I'd rather not see them. For me, that essentially sealed the deal. If she can so easily go from telling me she loves me and being with another guy, I doubt I could ever trust her again. Nevertheless, I made the decision that I would not react hastily because of my feelings. I must maintain my composure. Jen then informed me that Sharon would be joining us for supper. Jen made an appointment for me with a psychotherapist named Sharon. To be clear, this was my first encounter with my wife, and she has never met her. We got along well, and Sharon was a really pleasant girl. Following dinner, Sharon and I took the dogs for a stroll around Matt's neighborhood while also having a little private chat. Sharon was quite helpful since she listened well and gave me the impression that I didn't need to be cautious. Being that open about how I felt was therapeutic. Even though I get along well with my brother, this was something new and much needed. I enjoy blogging on Reddit for the same reason. It's a way for me to vent and clear out some of the chaos in my thoughts. The only practical advice Sharon provided me during our hour-long walk was to not put off talking to my wife. It will be more difficult to discuss this with her the longer I wait, she said. She explained that right now, I need clarity more than anything else, and my wife is the only one who can provide it. Jen and Matt invited me to remain with them for as long as needed later that evening. I talked to my manager, who was able to arrange for me to live in corporate housing because I'm aware that Matt and I have a time limit on living together. Although I had to leave on days off, I had been staying there every other week for some time. If I needed to, he was able to arrange for me to remain full-time for a few months. Later that week, I made the decision to reschedule with Sharon. For the first session, I thought talking would be enough, and she agreed. I lay in bed all night Sunday, trying to figure out how to go about this. I found this difficult because even the hypothetical situation in my mind made me feel depressed or angry. I made the decision to wing it. Normally, I perform well under pressure. I got up the following morning and bid Matt and Jen farewell. What if he's there when I get home? I asked myself as I drove home. I then reasoned that it would probably only make me feel even more irate than I had been a few days prior. I choose to start with a drive-by. My wife's automobile and his truck were not present. After going inside and gathering a number of necessities and items I didn't want to part with, I proceeded to the man's residence. His truck was there, but so was her car. To find out where she was, I made the decision to write her. I'm getting groceries, she said. I drove past the grocery shop and verified she was there because I don't trust her at the moment. Admitting that I did that makes me feel so bad, but that's the only way I can be sure of anything, and it breaks my trust. We need to discuss, so I contacted her again and implored her to simply come home. What's wrong? She replied in writing. I just replied that she must be prepared to be honest before shutting off my phone. 15 minutes later, she arrived home. As usual, she came over to give me a kiss and an embrace when she entered. I turned my back on her. She repeated, "What's wrong?" to me. I therefore advised her to start telling the truth to me. She seemed not to understand what I was talking about. I replied, "Okay, if you can't be honest, then I'm leaving." At this point, she became frantic and asked, "Are you talking about yoga?" I assumed that was a beginning. She told me that she hadn't been attending yoga when I asked her what she was talking about. "Where were you going if you weren't going to yoga?" I asked. She claimed that because she had been so worried lately, she was taking walks to decompress. "What has been causing you so much stress, and why did you feel the need to lie to me about what you were doing?" I inquired. She said she didn't know how to tell me and attributed it to the transfer preparations. I persisted in pressing, saying, "So you decided to lie. Why did you feel the need to let me know that you were taking a stroll to relieve stress?" I responded that I wasn't stressed when she stated she didn't mean to lie and that she was concerned she would be making me feel more stressed. She didn't appear to be telling me everything. "What do you mean?" she asked, looking at me in amazement. "I think you're lying about more than just skipping yoga," I remarked, glancing at her. "I'm asking you to be honest once more. If you continue to lie, this won't work because you have already lied to me." "Oh, are you talking about last weekend when I went for drinks with some friends and came home late?" She followed up on her attempt to deflect by claiming she was at a loss for words. "I sensed something that disturbed you. I didn't know she went out late or drank drinks." I questioned her whether she was lying again or if it was what she actually did while I was at work, a few hours away. She explained that although she went out for drinks that evening, she didn't run into her purported best friend. In response, I inquired, "Who did you see?" "No one. I just drank alone," she claimed. Naturally, I wasn't buying this, and I was getting impatient. I therefore questioned her, "Is that something now? That you are drinking by yourself?" "Yeah, maybe I have a problem," she replied in response. She had one final chance to be honest before I left, so I told her to get to the bottom of her drinking problem. She claimed she didn't know what else to say after giving me a glance. I simply got up and walked away. I usually take a drive to keep away from her when we argue. She likely assumed this was the same, But then she noticed that I had taken my Xbox, clothes and toiletries. She started blowing up my phone at that point. There's nothing more to say, I told her, because I offered her an opportunity to be honest and she didn't. She pleaded with me to come home so we could discuss things face to face. She claimed she didn't know what she believed she'd done or why I was so unhappy. She reaffirmed her love for me and her vow to never harm me. I felt a new ache in my chest just listening to her say that. The words were always consoling, and I blindly believed them. It felt like a dull, sharp knife cutting through my heart in the most worst way right now. I hung up because I couldn't take it any longer. Before I was prepared to respond once more, she called back roughly 40 times. Did you talk to Karen, the best friend? She asked this time. She responded, come home, I don't want to say this over the phone. When I asked why. In order to lower my heart rate, I agreed and continued driving for a little while longer. I then returned home. I assume you spoke to Karen, she began. She went on to describe how they went out for drinks a few weeks earlier when I was at work, but I just gazed at her. When a few men began purchasing drinks for them, they simply cooperated. One of the guys tried to kiss her as they were leaving, but she quickly retreated and informed them that she was married. She then expressed her regret and wanted to inform me, but she was a fool and chose to keep it a secret from me. She also informed me that without asking, Karen provided his friend my wife's number after hooking up with the other guy. Since then, he has texted her a few times, but she has never responded in writing. After all of that, I just asked her to show me her phone, and she did. Other than her mother and me, there were no texts at all. This was new to her because she never deletes her texts. When I investigated the deleted images, I discovered one of a guy I didn't recognize, even though her photos were clean. She told me it was the man who attempted to kiss her when I inquired who it was. Why did you take a picture of him? I asked her again. Once more, she placed the blame on herself, claiming that I was just being stupid. I pointed out that it's not a valid excuse and refused to allow her get away with it. I pressed her once more to explain her actions. She claimed not to know. Is that all you want to tell me, or is there more? I inquired, growing weary of the whole situation by this point. That was all she could think of, she said. I went out again. I didn't want to face any more hints of the truth. I climbed into my truck and headed out. She tried to stop me as she hurried outside, but I was already out of her grasp. After having my lunch and trying to think of what to do next, I went to the adjacent park and just sat on my tailgate. As I sat there, I started to recall other things I should have known better, like the times I worked a weekend shift and went to bed early. Along with some of her girlfriends, my wife went out to the club. She wasn't home when I woke up at 4 in the morning. I tried calling her several times, but nobody picked up. She called me back about half an hour later to ask if I could come get her. She informed me that they were unsuccessful in their attempt to hail a cab when I picked her up. Her buddy was approached by a pair of men who wanted to stop at home before offering them a ride. Her married buddy entered a room with one of the guys when they arrived at his residence. According to my wife, she looked for her for long before giving up and waiting with the roommates in the kitchen while enjoying a drink. When I tried to call her, she said she didn't hear her phone. We got into a fight over this, and she ended her friendship with her friend because she was disgusted by what they had done. I assumed that was the end of it. She once made the trip to another city to see a close friend. A scheduled girls' night was held. 4 of the girls were in their pajamas, watching movies while intoxicated. That's what I was told anyway. She then gave me a goodnight call at around 1 in the morning. She kept telling me that they were having a nice girls' night during our 20-minute conversation. Then, in the distance, I heard a man's voice. She initially denied hearing anything when I questioned who it was. Then, loudly, it occurred once again. Oh yeah, ex-friend took a couple of guys with her, she answered, unable to deny it. Everyone in this place is furious about it. She was 3 hours away and intoxicated. She forced me to put my trust in her once more. We discussed that as well as her refusal to inform me of their presence. She vowed never to place herself in such a predicament again. That obviously didn't stick. I was prepared to try this one last time after recalling all of those things and our discussions about them. My phone rang nearly instantly after I switched it back on. She was yelling for me to come home when I responded. I returned home by car. As soon as I stepped inside, she was there, crying uncontrollably. She kept saying, I'm so sorry, while seated on the couch. What are you sorry for? I asked her. She started to rock crazily back and forth. She confessed to lying about the man who attempted to kiss her after it took her a solid 5 minutes to collect her breath enough to talk. I asked her to explain what had transpired after giving her a quick glance. She claimed that evening, The four of them returned to his house and played about. Even though I knew there was more, I felt lightheaded simply listening to her say it. There seemed to be a million people talking into my ears at once, and the room seemed to be getting smaller. I believed that I was experiencing a panic attack. To get things back to normal, I went to the restroom and washed my face with cold water. "What exactly did you do?" I asked her again. I forced her to do it even though she attempted to avoid it. She went on to say that she gave him her head after he touched her. "Was that it?" I questioned her, knowing it wasn't all of it, and she said, "Yes." At this point, I was furious and informed her that I would no longer play the trickle truth game and that we would either stop talking or she would have to tell me everything at once. It took her a few more minutes to talk when she started crying once more. She now admits that they had another encounter and shared a bed. Then right away, "I'm so sorry. I will stop at nothing to make up for this because I love you." "Just the one time?" I asked her, knowing the truth. If she tells me the truth, I should please give her a chance to do everything she can to make up for it, she continued after pausing. I promised to give it some thought, and now the whole truth was revealed. She acknowledged that it had been an affair for over a month and that they had been having sex while I was out of town for work. She informs me that he is married and that their divorce is imminent. "Does he know you're married?" I questioned her. "Yes," she replies. "Do you think our marriage is failing if he was having an affair because his is failing?" I then questioned. "No, I don't think ours is failing," she responds, before going on to say, "I'm so dumb. I despise myself. Don't leave me, please. I can make this right." "How would you do that?" I inquired, and she stated she would do anything I requested. "What would fix this for you if you were in my shoes or the shoes of your affair partner's wife?" I questioned her. She said that it would be resolved if she knew the truth and could believe that I meant what I was saying. Then she said, "I'm trustworthy. I made a mistake and will not do it again." "Would you want to know the truth if you were his wife?" I questioned her. "Yes," she replied. "Then fix this?" I said. She asked, "Do you want me to call his wife?" after giving me a look. "If you believe that's what she would want," I said. She attempted to call but never received a response. Her cell phone rang a couple of minutes later. Karen Work was stated as the name. I knew it wasn't Karen because of the shocked expression on her face. "Is that him?" I questioned. "It was," she said. When I replied, he said, "Oops, I must have the wrong number," being the coward that he is. "No, this is the husband of the girl you have been having an affair with," I said. "She has something to tell you, so I'm going to let you talk to her." I handed the phone to her. She claims that she told him the whole truth, everything I know, that they were only having a brief affair and that he should never get in touch with her again. Before she hung up and asked him, "What divorce lawyer are you using?" I demanded to see the phone. "I'm not getting divorced," he responded. "Why did you tell my wife you were?" I asked him. "I didn't," he stated. I then requested to talk to his wife since I believed she should be aware of this just as much as I am. "Please dude," he said, "I didn't realize she was married. Don't let a mistake destroy my marriage." "You ruined mine over a mistake," I shot back. "It is only right that I inform his spouse." Since she was at work, he begged me not to tell her, promising to tell her everything when she got home. I hung up after saying, "All right, you do that." I then turned to my wife and asked her whether she knew the name and place of employment of his wife. She did. My wife called to let me know she was at work. She managed to get her on the phone and instructed her to sit down. This woman stated she will phone my wife back from her car as she was about to depart for the day. She did. "What's going on?" was the first question she asked. My wife informed her that she didn't want to start any mishaps and that she had something awful to share with her. "Please don't drive," she pleaded. The wife was obviously alarmed and inquired as to the whereabouts of her affair companion. My wife informed her that he was currently in their apartment and doing well. My wife went on to add, "I just wanted to let you know that we have been having an affair for the past month. Since I'm currently coming clean to my husband, I felt you should be treated with the same deference." After a minute or so of silence, the affair partner's wife claimed she would find out who my wife was if this was some sick joke. She hung up after that. Karen Work texted my wife less than 10 minutes later, saying, "Thanks, you just ruined my life." I picked up the phone and replied, "You just destroyed 2 marriages and 4 lives. Remember that. You bit of junk, you were to blame for this." My wife pleaded with me to stay with her for the next hour. She promised me sexual favors, counseling, and the promise that she would always be by my side. Thanks to the comments, this was just what I expected. Then as a reward, she suggested that we take that trip. She said, "We need time away." My work schedule has been separating us lately, so we need to get together and spend some quality time. And just what I thought she would say. I went, but she wasn't expecting me to inform her. Additionally, she wasn't prepared for me to inform her that I already had a counseling appointment scheduled. She most certainly didn't anticipate my telling her that I had slept with her in my own bed. She probably didn't anticipate that I would have a hotel reservation in place. She sobbed on the floor when I told her all of that. She began to complain that she didn't deserve to live. She advised me to break up with her immediately since she is too awful to be with anybody else. That was how it continued for some time. I listened to her justifications for 4 hours straight, during which time she tried to give me a hug, a cuddle, or even a head if I would just remain and work things out with her. When I finally phoned Karen, I informed her that her unfaithful buddy was suicidal and asked her to come watch her. After that, I departed. I haven't spoken to her since that incident, which occurred about a full day ago. All day long she has been phoning and texting me. All day long her friends and family have been phoning and texting me. Each one has a different justification or request for sympathy. The only person to write to me was her father, who assured me that he would always love me like a son, no matter what, and that I should act in my own best interests. I had my first good cry since this whole thing started when I read it. My counselor Sharon and I have appointments tomorrow and Thursday, respectively. Though I'm unsure of everything until it happens, I believe I know where this is headed. I apologize for the long story. It's just a good method to get things out. Once more, thank you very much for all of the letters and comments. I feel so much less damaged and more hopeful because of the folks who are sharing their own tales like this. I truly appreciate all of your words and actions on my behalf. That concluded the update. Before I offer my commentary, we have one last update regarding this story. All I can say at this point is that I believe the OP did a fantastic job of persuading his unfaithful wife to tell the truth. Final update. Well done, he. Let's proceed to the last update now. It was a pretty eventful week. I've been alternating between my brother's house and camp. I only stay on nights when I have an early appointment because I want to be as unobtrusive as possible. I've benefited much from my employer's permission to take a few weeks off for personal reasons. I've kept going to see the therapist, Sharon. So far, I've seen her 3 times. Personally, I feel better now than I did a week ago. Therefore, even if I don't think our visits are very fruitful, I do think they're a nice opportunity for me to get some things off my mind. I will therefore continue for the time being. Last Thursday, I had a conversation with a lawyer. I compiled a list of all assets and financial information, including debt, under their guidance. After that, I went to the bank and requested that they put a stop on our accounts so that no one could take money out of them without the other person being there. This won't prevent either of us from obtaining new money, just the old shared money, because we both have our paychecks deposited into our own accounts. Although it's now too late, the lawyer did advise me to wait to confront her until after I've served her the papers. I was getting calls and texts from my wife, her family, and her friends almost non-stop throughout the entire week. My sister-in-law hosted a family gathering at the cabin this past weekend. I went and had to tell my family the news. Now that it's public knowledge, I can incorporate them into my recuperation process. Up until about 8 o'clock on Saturday night, everything was going as smoothly as it could be. When my wife's automobile arrived, my dad, brother and I were gathered around the fire. Matt, my brother, assured me he would handle everything. In order to avoid being seen from the driveway, my dad and I made the decision to take a stroll around the property. I could hear my wife yelling at my brother to move out of the path as we were just about to enter the woodland. She was accompanied by a few of her pals, who were also shouting at Matt and urging him to shut up. He tried his hardest, but in the end they were too much for him. She pushed past him and came running toward us. She must have noticed us going in that direction. I stated I would handle her, even though my dad offered to handle it. My wife, who I'll just call Kate, came racing to me and started crying. I didn't stop her from giving her a hug right away, but I also didn't give her one in return. She pleaded with me simply to talk to her. I accepted, and in order to have some peace, we strolled around the property's trails. The other guy's wife has left him, according to Kate. She told me that he blamed her for everything and threatened to kill himself over the phone. She says she hasn't spoken to him since telling him to simply do it. She then takes out a piece of paper and begins enumerating the ways she intends to make amends with me. She provided all of these services on the first day, including sexual requests and couples therapy. And then she surprised me. I don't want to continue living this way, she says. She stated that she wants us to both quit our jobs, go abroad, and open the small beach bar we've always discussed. She claimed that if I accompanied her, she would depart immediately. In order to contextualize this is all that came to mind for the previous week as I tried to picture my life after the divorce. I assumed that everything would have to be restarted. I might as well add another element to the tremendous change I'm currently going through and just do what I want. I was reminded of how much I missed her and wanted to be with her when I heard her express the same desire. I knew I had to cut the conversation short at that point. Her buddies were waiting for her when I escorted her back to her car. I informed her that although I couldn't guarantee anything more, I would be open to talking on the phone. She felt enough at ease to depart. Since then, we've talked on the phone every night, but it never changes. She sobs and pleads with me for another opportunity. I hung up after becoming upset with her for what she'd done. Right now, I'm having a terrible time missing her. It's difficult to talk to someone who was my best friend for decades. It is heartbreaking to realize that all of our hopes and dreams have been thrown away. The only thing I want is to simply move and start fresh somewhere else. She wrecked it, even though I wanted that to be with her. She took that away from me, that's all. We only have that information from OP. With any luck, he was able to complete the divorce, relocate to a beach, and open his bar. At least we know that the affair partner received his just desserts and that he was able to confront his unfaithful wife. I thus hope that the original poster is content with his life and enjoying himself wherever he is as I wrap up this film, which has already been long enough. In addition, how many of you would like to see a beach bar like the one the original poster mentioned? That is one of my retirement fantasies, and I'm aware of it. My sister tried to seduce my fiancé before our wedding. Got caught on camera and was disowned by our parents. My manipulative, narcissistic sister attempted to seduce my fiancé just before our wedding in an effort to break us apart. Fortunately, her actions were caught on camera, leading to her being disowned by our parents. This story revolves around my older sister, Dove, 29F, who has never been able to tolerate my existence, as she apparently believes I'm living a life that I don't deserve. Dove, who is now divorced and jobless, is living with our parents. She had dropped out of college to be with her wealthy boyfriend, who eventually divorced her when her true nature became apparent. Growing up, my relationship with Dove was far from ideal. She was always the pretty and smart one, full of herself, and our parents consistently showered her with praise, which left me feeling inadequate. Everyone around us constantly admired her looks, while I was often ignored, and it hurt deeply. Dove used her popularity to mess with my mind, telling me that no one liked me, which made me incredibly insecure. My parents never supported me or acknowledged my feelings because Dove always lived up to their expectations. This led me to distance myself from them throughout my childhood and teenage years. Dove frequently had friends over when our parents were at work, and they would often mess with my room. On one occasion, they even ruined a school project of mine, nearly causing me to fail. When I threatened to tell Mom about it, Dove blackmailed me, saying she would share embarrassing pictures of me with my classmates. At just 14 years old, I was terrified. Dove never took responsibility for her actions, and it was pointless to tell my parents because they never paid attention to me. My mom never had my back, although my dad would occasionally call Dove out. For instance, one time she used my phone to send strange pictures to my friends after I'd complained to Dad about her. Another time, she spilled coffee on my prom dress and then played the victim, crying and claiming it was an accident. After that, I stopped confiding in him altogether. I never really understood why she harbored so much hatred towards me until later when I realized that she was a narcissist, and her behavior had nothing to do with me. She was a walking red flag in her relationships, cheating on every guy she dated. As much as I hate to admit it, she was also a gold digger. Something her ex, who remains a friend of mine, can fully attest to. Essentially, she was pretty awful as a teenager, and nothing changed as she grew older. If anything, her behavior only got worse. It was entirely my parents' fault because they never bothered to discipline her. After school, things finally started to look up for me. I worked incredibly hard to get into my dream college, and after a few years of struggle, I landed my dream job. It was there that I met the love of my life, Atlas, at an office conference. He was smart, kind, and handsome, and we hit it off instantly. Within a few months, we started dating. We traveled a lot, which only strengthened our bond. Atlas was very close to his family, so he introduced me to his siblings and parents just a few months into our relationship. But when it came to introducing him to my own parents, I took my sweet time. The main reason for this delay was my sister Dove and her malicious intentions. I always had this nagging feeling that she would find a way to ruin everything. She was the one who always got the best of everything as a child and teenager, and now that my life was going better than hers, I was certain she wouldn't be able to handle it, especially when it came to my relationship. However, I couldn't keep delaying the introduction any longer. Atlas was beginning to grow suspicious of my reluctance to introduce him to my family. So, after a year and a half of dating, I finally told Dad about him. Dad was thrilled that I had found a man who was worthy of me and invited us over for dinner. While I was excited, I was also equally stressed because I knew Dove could go to any lengths to sabotage my happiness. Although Atlas was aware of my family dynamics, I went over it with him in detail. He was relaxed about it and reassured me that he would handle whatever came his way. A few days after I spoke with Dad, I unexpectedly received a call from Dove. It was surprising since she had never reached out to me before. She started asking questions about Atlas and when I planned to visit home, but it was clear that her real interest was in getting more details about Atlas. I can only assume that Mom had told her I was seeing someone and that our relationship was getting serious. Dove was suddenly trying to get all chummy with me, but I could see right through her motives. Now, I'm grappling with whether I should take the risk of introducing Atlas to Dove, knowing full well that her intentions are far from good. I'm also considering an alternative, perhaps inviting my parents over to my place so they can meet Atlas without involving Dove. Update 1. Thanks for all the great advice. Some of you asked for more details about Dove, so here you go. It's true that my parents, especially my dad, began to see Dove differently after her divorce, and she really brought it on herself. She had been academically gifted, but once she got to college, her entire focus shifted to her looks and beauty. That's when she met Jeremy, a super rich guy, and jumped into a relationship with him, completely abandoning her studies. During my final year of school, I was busy preparing for my college entrance exams, and Dove kept telling me I would never get into my dream college. But I did, and for the first time, I got validation from my parents. They were genuinely happy and proud of me, but Dove couldn't stand it. She was jealous that all the attention was on me and not on her. To sabotage my moment, she announced her engagement to Jeremy at the celebration party my parents had organized for me with close family and friends. It was obvious from Jeremy's expression that he had no idea she was going to do this, but she succeeded in making the day all about herself. Everyone immediately became curious about Jeremy because, according to Dove, he was extremely wealthy. Dove loved to show off the expensive gifts he bought her and would constantly tell me that I'd never find a rich husband because I was ugly and no one would want to date someone like me, always trying to make me feel bad. I eventually told her that I wasn't a gold digger like her and that I could pay my own bills, so she could have the rich husband if that's what she wanted. In truth, she was incredibly selfish and downright evil, the most selfish person I've ever known. A week later, Dove and Jeremy got engaged, but by then I was already off to college and didn't attend the engagement. During my time in college, I had no communication with her. It actually felt good to come home for the holidays, knowing that Dove was living with Jeremy. Even during the holidays, she would often be away on vacations to exotic locations with him. After a year of dating, they had a lavish wedding, with most of the expenses covered by Jeremy. Dad chipped in for the remaining costs as a courtesy since Dove wasn't earning anything. Their marriage didn't last long, though. After 3 years, they got divorced. The reason, as I later found out, was that Dove didn't want to have children, while Jeremy was eager to become a father. Although he assured me he never pressured her, he was frustrated that she never disclosed her feelings about it beforehand and had avoided the conversation for 3 years. He also mentioned her drinking and partying habits, flirting with guys at bars, and that she had married him purely for his money, with no emotional connection. I couldn't help but wonder how he remained blind to her true motives for so long. Jeremy even showed me videos of Dove out drinking with guys who were touching her inappropriately, and she did nothing to stop them. I was relieved he finally ended things with her, but my parents took Dove's side, blaming Jeremy for pressuring her about having kids, never acknowledging her faults. After the divorce, Dove moved back in with my parents since she wasn't working. She had dropped out of college to marry Jeremy, and now, after 5 years, she had no degree and no work experience. She pretended to be traumatized by the divorce, but in reality, she was happy to be free. Within a month of the divorce, she was back to her old habits, clubbing and hooking up. Her life seemed to revolve around weekly dates and ditching people, and her Instagram stories made it clear what she was really up to. 2 years into my career, I landed my dream job with a great salary, and my parents were thrilled. After receiving the job offer, I visited home, and Dad was so proud of me, I couldn't have been happier. We were having dinner when Dove returned home, looking partially drunk. Dad was upset at the sight of her and commented that Dove should have focused on her education like I did, instead of ruining her life over Jeremy. He pointed out how much I was earning and how Dove was still dependent on them for money. Mom tried to get Dad to stop making such comments, but hearing this, Dove lost her temper and slammed the door. That's when Dad finally realized just how spoiled Dove had become. He told Mom that it was time to knock some sense into her, insisting that Dove needed to start taking her life seriously and get back on her feet instead of continuing to leech off them. By this point, I was completely fed up with her. Later, Dove barged into my room and smugly told me that no matter how much money I made, I could never be like her. She even went as far as to body shame me, pointing out my belly fat and chubby cheeks. As a teenager, those kinds of comments used to break my heart, but now, I just didn't care. I laughed in her face and told her that I had no desire to be like her and that she clearly needed to work on fixing her attitude. That set her off, and she demanded that I leave the house. I calmly reminded her that this was our parents' house, and she had no authority to boss me around. The next day, as I was packing to leave, I noticed that 2 of my dresses had been badly torn, clearly cut with scissors. I went downstairs and showed my parents what Dove had done. Dad was furious and called Dove out, but Mom, as usual, tried to make excuses for her, claiming Dove was in shock and didn't know what she was doing. Dad wasn't having any of it. He warned Mom to stay out of it and then unleashed his anger on Dove, telling her that she needed to get her life together because he was done providing for her or tolerating her narcissism. This confrontation didn't sit well with Dove, and she ended up hating me even more because of it. From that point on, I was subjected to Dove's wrath, but her hatred didn't bother me. It only became unbearable when she started making advances on my boyfriend. After much consideration and talking it over with Atlas, I decided it was time to visit my parents with him. There was no point in hiding him from Dove any longer because, no matter how hard I tried, she would eventually find a way to get to him. My friends advised me that it was better to test his loyalty now than to risk losing him later. Dove would only succeed in her malicious intentions if Atlas allowed it. With a sense of dread, I showed up at my parents' house with Atlas. I tell you, she was practically throwing herself at him. As he was exchanging greetings with Mom and Dad, Dove almost forcefully pushed herself onto him for a hug. I have no idea what made her think Atlas would fall for her looks. She had completely transformed her appearance, dyeing her blonde hair black, getting all dressed up in a new outfit, with her nails and hair perfectly done, as if she was on a date with him. She tried to force her way into the conversation, but it was clear that everyone was ignoring her. At the dinner table, she quickly rushed to sit beside Atlas. When I asked her to move so I could sit there, she gave me an annoyed look but eventually complied. She kept asking Atlas about his interests, and if he mentioned liking something, she would immediately claim she liked it too, even if it was obvious she didn't. Then she'd go on about how she and Atlas were so compatible, winking at me as if to suggest I shouldn't take it seriously, though it was clear she was trying to cover up her intentions. Atlas was visibly uncomfortable, and he ignored her, continuing his conversation with Dad and Mom. Her desperate attempt was so blatantly obvious. After dinner, I decided to take a shower, leaving Atlas by himself. That's when Dove walked in, asking him to call her number because she claimed she couldn't find her phone. It was obvious that this was just a ploy to get his number. How twisted. Atlas also told me that while I was occupied with other things, Dove tried to play the victim, telling him her sob story about the divorce and how much mental distress it had caused her, dragging on about how it took her years to recover. To make matters worse, Mom even chimed in, blaming Jeremy and speaking ill of him. After a while, Atlas asked me if I wanted to go for a walk and give him a tour of the neighborhood. Before I could respond, my sister quickly stood up and said, "Sure." Atlas looked at her, surprised, and firmly stated that he wanted some alone time with me. Her face turned red with embarrassment and she quietly retreated to her room. It's only been a few days since that visit and I can already sense that Dove is planning more schemes to lure Atlas into her trap. I can't deny that it worries me, but at the same time, I trust my man and am curious to see how he handles her advances. Update 2. Hello everyone, I'm thrilled to share that I'm engaged. Atlas proposed to me last month during a trip and yes, he got down on one knee with a ring, and I couldn't stop gushing over it. But even after our visit to my parents, Dove didn't stop with her manipulative tactics. She started texting Atlas, asking how he was doing. Knowing that Atlas is a huge cat lover, Dove began flooding his inbox with cute cat videos, even though she never cared for cats before. After discovering that Atlas adored cats, she went so far as to get one herself and began recording videos of it to send to him. For the first few weeks, Atlas showed me Dove's desperate attempts to appear caring and concerned, sending messages that pretended to inquire about his work and well-being. After a while though, he stopped sharing her messages with me. I assumed she had finally given up on him and moved on, and we both shifted our focus back to more important things, especially with our busy work schedules. One day, as I was scrolling through social media, I noticed that Dove had added Atlas to her account. She was liking and commenting on nearly all of his posts, using silly heart icons. She even went back and commented on old pictures and videos from 7 to 10 years ago. I immediately felt uneasy about it, So out of the blue I checked his phone. I discovered that Dove was still texting him occasionally, but her messages were unread and seemed odd. She was clearly trying hard to get Atlas's attention. In his call logs, I saw missed calls from her, including one that came in around 3 a.m., which made me feel anxious. I confronted Atlas about why he hadn't told me that Dove was still texting him. He got a bit nervous and explained that he had been ignoring her and thought it was better if we didn't talk about her. I pressed him further about the calls, and he remained calm. Then he sat me down and explained that one day, Dove had called him, sounding really upset. He got scared, thinking something might be seriously wrong, but it turned out she just started talking about traumatic experiences related to Jeremy, saying she needed someone to talk to. Atlas told Dove that she should talk to her parents instead and that it wasn't appropriate to call so late. He also mentioned that she should have let me know first. That really struck a nerve with me, and I told him that keeping this from me wasn't okay and could lead to me losing trust in him. He reassured me that he would never fall for her tricks and that I had nothing to worry about. Even with his reassurance, I had read too many stories about husbands falling into similar traps, and I didn't want to be naive by blindly trusting him. I told him that the next time Dove called, he should hand the phone over to me so I could catch her in the act. Sure enough, one night, her call came through, and Atlas woke me up in the middle of the night. I answered the phone, and Dove immediately went silent when she heard my voice. She quickly claimed it was a mistake and hung up. The next day, I tried calling her multiple times to confront her, but she never picked up. So I texted her from Atlas's phone, letting her know it was me and that she needed to stop calling or texting him at odd hours. I also told her that if there was anything urgent she should contact me directly instead. After that, she finally stopped texting him, and I felt relieved that she was out of our lives. After Atlas proposed to me, I sent a picture of the ring to my dad. Dove must have shown it to Mom, and not long after, she started her stalking behavior again. She began texting Atlas and sending ridiculous videos. I was completely fed up. As soon as Atlas told me, I called her and unleashed all my pent-up anger, telling her to stop playing games and get a life. She mostly stayed silent while I let it all out, but I didn't realize at the time that she wasn't going to back down easily. As soon as I hung up, Mom called, furious, yelling at me for insulting my sister. Dove had told her that I was accusing her of trying to steal my fiancé. Mom claimed that my cruelty had caused Dove to have panic attacks and insisted that I be more considerate toward her, reminding me that Dove had been struggling with depression for years and was still recovering from her traumatic divorce. I found it laughable because Dove was never depressed about her divorce. I hung up the call and immediately informed Dad that if they continued to ignore Dove's behavior, I would have no choice but to cut them out of my life. I was done being a puppet in her game. I couldn't keep turning a blind eye to her antics. Update 3. I never imagined Dove would stoop so low. She had always made my life miserable, but I never thought she would actually try to seduce my fiancé before our wedding. The bullying, body shaming and constant ridicule were one thing, but realizing that she was willing to go as far as trying to ruin my wedding by seducing Atlas was a bitter pill to swallow. As we were planning our wedding, I wasn't in contact with Mom after our last confrontation. However, she eventually called and apologized for shouting at me, admitting that she had lost control out of fear for Dove, who was supposedly having panic attacks. One of my cousins later told me that Dove had been crying to everyone about how I was accusing her of trying to steal my fiancé and that I didn't deserve any of the good things in my life, especially Atlas. According to Dove, because she was the gorgeous one, she believed she should be the one getting the best of everything, not me. When I told Mom about this, she went quiet. She simply told me to forget everything and focus on my wedding and the happy life ahead. Fortunately, everything went as planned, and Dove managed to keep a low profile for a while. At the very least, she didn't interfere in our lives during that time. On the day of our wedding, we were at the venue, busy with final preparations, when I received a call from Atlas's best friend, asking me to come to Atlas's room with my parents. I jokingly teased him, saying that Atlas wasn't supposed to see the bride before the ceremony, but he insisted that this was something serious that needed to be dealt with before the wedding. My heart raced as I hurried to Atlas's room with my parents. When we arrived, Atlas was lying shirtless, drifting in and out of consciousness, while his groomsmen recounted Dove's devious actions. Apparently, while Atlas was getting ready, Dove had shown up with a drink. He initially refused it, but Dove persisted until he took a sip. Almost immediately, Atlas realized the drink was spiked. He excused himself and went to the washroom, where he called his friend, explained what had happened and asked him to come over. By the time his friend arrived, Atlas had partially passed out and was out of the washroom. Since his friend was sharing the room with Atlas, he had access and quickly turned on his camera as he entered. He overheard Atlas shouting at Dove to leave him alone while she was on top of him. Undressing herself, and rubbing against him. This disgusting act was captured on camera. When Dove noticed Atlas's friend, she pretended they were making out, covered herself up and left the room, smirking at his friend and asking him not to tell anyone. Little did she know that she had already been caught on video. When we walked in, Atlas was still lying there, partially unconscious. The drink was so potent that even a few sips had left him severely dizzy with a pounding headache. The glass was still there, with solid particles settled at the bottom. It was an incredibly humiliating moment for my parents, who were in disbelief that Dove could do something so horrendous. My mom immediately called Dove and told her to come to Atlas's room. When she arrived, her lipstick was smudged, and she nonchalantly said, "I know you guys are mad at me, but it was mutual. Atlas loves me and has been making advances on me ever since we met. Today, he convinced me to have a one-time hookup before the wedding." My mom slapped her hard, telling her that we were aware of her lies and that everything had been recorded on camera. Dove was stunned by this revelation, and my parents wasted no time in kicking her out of the venue before she could cause any more trouble. Security was instructed not to allow her back inside. It was obvious that she had been trying to make it known that she had been with Atlas, hoping I would call off the wedding. My dad immediately called a doctor, who confirmed that Atlas had indeed been served a spiked drink, which had severely affected him. Atlas's parents and siblings were so upset that they wanted to confront Dove, but my parents had to apologize profusely to them to help calm the situation. The wedding had to be delayed until Atlas recovered, which took several rounds of vomiting to get through. Word of the incident spread quickly among the guests, who were buzzing with gossip for the next few days. Once Atlas had fully recovered, my dad walked me down the aisle. While I was happy to finally see Atlas as my husband, I couldn't shake the stress of everything that had transpired. During our vows, Atlas added an extra promise, vowing to protect our relationship from anyone who didn't want to see us together. After we returned from our honeymoon, my parents came to visit us and apologized to Atlas for all the trouble Dove had caused. My dad reassured us that Dove would be out of our lives for good. He had actually kicked her out of the house and told her to fend for herself. Despite this, I'm still struggling to move past the incident. My wedding was perilously close to being called off, and if Atlas's friend hadn't recorded what happened, I might never have believed that Atlas was innocent in all of this. Mother-in-law ruined my wedding. By spiking my drink, then tried to buy my forgiveness with $5K, now we're left to navigate the fallout. My mother-in-law secretly spiked my drink at my wedding, causing me to faint and ruin the reception. Now she's trying to buy my forgiveness with $5,000 because my husband has made his decision. Hi everyone, I'm Rachel, 27F, and I just got married a week ago to my wonderful husband Jaden, 32M. The wedding felt like something straight out of a telenovela. This whole journey began 2 years ago at a local coffee shop. I was a regular there, always needing my morning caffeine fix to start the day. One day, I noticed a tall guy with kind eyes standing in line behind me. He seemed nice, but to be honest, I wasn't really paying much attention. All I could think about was getting my hands on a latte. Later that same week, I bumped into him again, and this time, we ended up chatting while waiting for our coffees. We talked about everything. Our favorite books, weird childhood stories, and even our mutual love for that cozy little coffee shop. We laughed a lot, and for the first time that day I felt truly awake. Looking back, I realized that I was quick to judge at first. Perhaps because I was so absorbed in my routine or because Jaden wasn't the kind of guy I typically gravitated toward. But that day, something shifted in me. There was a genuine kindness in him, a warmth in his smile that I couldn't ignore. We exchanged numbers and that very night, Jaden texted me, asking if I wanted to grab dinner sometime. We ended up going to this tiny Italian place hidden away on a side street. The food was incredible, but the best part was our conversation. We talked for hours, and it felt effortless. We discovered we had a surprising amount in common, a love for old movies, a secret passion for karaoke, even though neither of us is very good, and a shared obsession with tacos. Over the next few weeks, we started seeing more and more of each other. We went on hikes, explored museums, and even tried, and failed, to take a pottery class together. The more time I spent with Jaden, the more I realized how special he was. He was funny, intelligent, supportive, and always knew how to make me smile. He pushed me to be a better person and made me feel like I could be completely myself around him. Then, on our second anniversary, Jaden surprised me with the most incredible proposal. We were on a weekend getaway to a charming cabin in the mountains. It was snowing softly outside, and we were cuddled up by the fireplace when Jaden got down on one knee and pulled out a ring. I don't even remember exactly what he said because all I could focus on was the love shining in his eyes. Of course, I said yes. As soon as we got back from our cabin trip, I dove into planning the wedding with so much excitement. But this is where things took an unexpected turn. After Jaden and I got engaged, I met his mom, Maria, 57, for the first time. She lived a bit out of town, so we hadn't had the chance to meet before. At first, Maria was incredibly sweet to me. She talked about how thrilled she was to finally have a daughter-in-law. Jaden was her only child, and she mentioned that she had always wanted more children, so having me join the family felt like a big deal to her, almost like gaining another child. She even hugged me warmly and said she couldn't wait to get to know me better. However, things began to change rather quickly. That weekend, Maria came to stay with us to help with some wedding planning and to spend more time together. Initially, I was thrilled, thinking we'd bond and grow closer. But as the weekend progressed, her attitude shifted in a way that made me uncomfortable. The first passive-aggressive remark came during breakfast on Saturday morning. I had made a batch of my favorite pancakes, and while Jaden was outside enjoying his coffee, Maria looked at me with a smile and said, "Oh, I guess you don't worry too much about carbs, huh?" I laughed it off at the moment, assuming it was just a casual comment, but it stung a bit. Later that day, as we were flipping through some wedding dress magazines, Maria pointed at a model and remarked, "This dress is stunning, but it's meant for someone with a very specific figure. Not everyone can pull it off." She glanced at me as she said it, and it felt like a subtle dig, suggesting she didn't think I could wear something like that. I just nodded and tried to brush it off, but the comment lingered, making me feel self-conscious. The remarks kept coming. When we were out shopping for some decorations, she casually mentioned, "You know, my friend's daughter lost 20 pounds for her wedding. She looked so stunning. Have you thought about doing something like that?" I was taken aback and didn't really know how to respond. I mumbled something about being content with my body as it is, but it left me feeling judged, as if she thought I should be trying to lose weight for the wedding. The next morning, while she was looking through my kitchen cupboards, she commented, "Oh, you have a lot of snacks here. I'd try to keep my house a bit more on the healthy side. You don't want to gain weight before the wedding, do you?" I couldn't believe she was still harping on about my weight, and it was beginning to really hurt my feelings. It felt like she was picking on me, even though she always had a smile on her face and spoke in a seemingly kind tone. What struck me as odd was that Maria never made those comments in front of Jaden. It was as if she had a switch she could flip on and off. When Jaden was around, she was all smiles and sweet words, but the moment he stepped out or was in another room, she'd start making those passive-aggressive remarks. I felt like I was living in two different worlds, one where I was accepted and loved, and another where I was constantly judged and criticized. Initially, I didn't think it was necessary to bring this issue up with Jaden. After all, it was his mom, and I didn't want to create any tension between us, especially since we had just gotten engaged and were in such a blissful place. I kept telling myself that it was just a minor inconvenience, something I could handle. Besides, I'm not exactly thin. I have curves, and I'm proud of my body. I've worked hard to feel confident in my own skin. Maria's remarks were more annoying than anything else. It felt like she was trying to undermine my confidence, but I was determined not to let her get to me. However, Maria started coming over more frequently. It felt like she was around every weekend, and it was beginning to drive me a little crazy. I worked from Monday to Friday and only had the weekends to focus on wedding planning. But every time I turned around, there was Maria, offering to help or just hanging around. It was tough to concentrate on wedding preparations with her constantly there, making little comments and acting like she knew better than I did. One weekend, she called to say she'd be coming over again. I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach because I really needed some time alone to plan without her input. So I told her I was going to be busy and wouldn't be at home. She asked what I was up to, and before I could stop myself, I blurted out that I was going to look at wedding dresses. I think I just wanted her to know that I had important things to do. To my surprise, she got really excited and said she'd love to come along. I didn't know how to say no without sounding rude, so I reluctantly agreed. The next thing I knew, she was at my door, beaming and eager to help me find the perfect dress. I tried to smile back, but inside, I was dreading how this shopping trip would unfold. We visited a few bridal shops, and from the moment we stepped inside, Maria was in full mom mode, suggesting dresses that didn't appeal to me and making comments about how certain styles wouldn't flatter my figure. It was utterly draining. I felt like I couldn't even breathe without her casting judgment. When I tried on a dress that I genuinely loved, she remarked, "It's nice, but don't you think it's a bit snug around the waist? Maybe something more flowy would suit you better." I was crushed because I adored that dress, but her words made me second-guess myself. By the end of the day, I hadn't found a dress, and I was feeling pretty low. Thankfully, Maria went back to her place, and I finally had a moment of peace. For the next few days, she kept texting me, asking when I would be looking for dresses again. I just kept saying that I didn't know when I'd have the time. I was determined not to tell her when I planned to go shopping, but my plan unraveled when Jaden mentioned to his mom that I'd be going dress shopping the next day. So she called me, asking what time she should come over. I found myself at a crossroads. Maria had already made so many remarks about my body that I dreaded the idea of her tagging along. I knew that if I took her with me to the bridal shop, she would ruin the day with more comments and judgments, so I decided to come up with an excuse. I told her that the bridal shop had a rule allowing only 2 people to accompany me, and my mom and maid of honor were already on their way. I realize now that it was a pretty lame excuse, but at that moment I couldn't think of anything else. Maria quickly pointed out how ridiculous my explanation was and said, "What kind of bridal shop only allows 2 people? That's just silly." I fumbled for a response and said, "I know it's weird, but that's what they told me." I was sweating bullets because I knew how flimsy my lie sounded. I hurriedly told her I had to go and ended the call before she could ask any more questions. As soon as I hung up, a huge wave of guilt washed over me. I hated lying, especially to Jaden's mom, but I just couldn't face another day of her making me feel bad about myself. I decided to focus on the positive and remind myself that this day was supposed to be fun and exciting. My mom and maid of honor picked me up and we headed to the bridal shop. I did my best to shake off the lingering guilt and just enjoy the moment, and in the end, I found a dress that I absolutely loved. After that, Maria didn't call, text, or even visit our house. She still kept in touch with Jaden, which was a bit of a relief since it avoided any awkwardness between them. I sent her a picture of me in the wedding dress, hoping to share some of my excitement with her. She responded with just a thumbs up emoji and nothing else. I wasn't sure how to interpret that, but I decided not to overthink it. With so much to do as the wedding approached, I didn't have time to dwell on her reaction. As the wedding day drew nearer, I became increasingly busy with all the preparations. Honestly, I didn't reach out to Maria again. There was so much to coordinate, finalizing the guest list, confirming the caterers, and ensuring that all the decorations were perfect. Finally, the big day arrived. It exceeded all my expectations. The ceremony was beautiful, and I couldn't stop smiling as I walked down the aisle toward Jaden. The look on his face when he saw me in my dress was priceless, making all the stress of planning worthwhile. We said our vows, exchanged rings, and just like that, we were married. The reception started off perfectly. The venue was gorgeous, the weather was ideal, the food was delicious, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. I loved our first dance. Jaden and I had taken a few dance lessons and we managed not to step on each other's toes. It felt like a fairy tale, and I was on cloud 9. Everything was going smoothly until I decided to get a drink. I walked over to the bar for something refreshing, and there was Maria, standing right there. She turned to me with a big smile and said, "You look like you're having a wonderful time. Let me get you a drink, just relax and enjoy yourself." I was a bit taken aback by her sudden enthusiasm but thought maybe she was trying to make up for all the awkwardness. She handed me a Shirley Temple, and I thanked her and took a sip. A few minutes later, I started feeling drowsy, but I assumed it was just because I was tired. Then, I fainted on the floor and lost consciousness. Everything went black, and the next thing I knew, Jaden was panicking and calling for an ambulance. I could hear the worry in his voice as he tried to keep me awake. People were gathering around, but it was all a blur. When the EMTs arrived, they quickly brought me back to consciousness and began asking questions about what I had eaten and drunk that day. I told them everything, including the meal I had at the reception and the Shirley Temple that Maria had given me. They expressed concern and asked if there was anything unusual or if I had taken any medication. That's when Maria, looking a bit guilty, stepped forward and admitted that the drink she gave me had alcohol in it. She explained that she didn't think it would be a big deal and thought it would help me relax. I was stunned. Why would she add alcohol to my drink without telling me? The situation became even more complicated when my maid of honor, Emily, spoke up. She informed the EMTs that I had taken some anxiety medication just minutes before walking down the aisle. I had been so anxious about everything going off without a hitch that I took a small dose to calm my nerves. It turned out that the combination of the medication and the alcohol in the drink was what caused me to collapse. There must have been some kind of chemical reaction that knocked me out. The EMTs explained that mixing alcohol with certain medications can be very dangerous and that I was fortunate the outcome wasn't more severe. After the EMTs left, Jaden turned to Maria and demanded that she leave. His voice was shaking with anger, and Maria looked completely shocked. She tried to explain, insisting she hadn't meant any harm and that it was all just a misunderstanding, but Jaden wasn't having any of it. He shouted at her to leave the reception immediately. I had never seen him so furious, and it broke my heart to witness his anger towards his mom on what was supposed to be a joyful day. With all the chaos, I wasn't feeling well, and the mood at the reception took a nosedive. Guests started to feel uncomfortable, and the joyous atmosphere we had worked so hard to create just vanished. People began leaving one by one, and before we knew it, the reception ended early. It was devastating to see everyone leave so soon, and I felt like the day I had been dreaming of for so long had been ruined. Jaden and I went back to our hotel room, and I was left trying to process everything that had happened. I felt numb, exhausted, and overwhelmed with sadness. This day was supposed to be one of the happiest of my life, but instead, it had turned into a nightmare because of a careless prank. I couldn't believe that Maria's actions had destroyed our special day. Maria kept texting and calling both me and Jaden, but neither of us responded. We needed some time to process everything and figure out our next steps. I could see that Jaden was deeply troubled by the situation. He loved his mom, but he was also incredibly hurt and angry over what she had done. It was a difficult situation, and I had no idea how to fix it. When we finally returned home, I tried to put the whole incident behind me and focus on starting our new life together, but it wasn't easy. Every time I thought about our wedding day, I felt a pang of sorrow. I kept replaying the events in my mind, wondering how things could have turned out differently if Maria hadn't pulled that prank. It felt like a dark cloud hanging over what should have been a beautiful memory. Thankfully, we soon left for our honeymoon, and it was such a relief to escape all the drama and stress. Jaden and I had an amazing time exploring new places and creating beautiful memories together. It was the perfect getaway, and for those 2 weeks, I felt like everything was back to normal. We laughed, relaxed, and enjoyed each other's company without a care in the world. When we returned home, reality hit us hard. The moment we pulled into the driveway, there was Maria, standing at the door. My heart sank, and a wave of anxiety washed over me. I had anticipated this confrontation, but I wasn't prepared for it to happen as soon as we got back. What made it worse was that she didn't offer an apology. Instead, she kept insisting that it wasn't her fault and that it was all just a prank. She tried to justify her actions, saying things like, "I didn't think it would hurt you," and "I just wanted to lighten the mood." It was infuriating to watch her refuse to take responsibility for what she had done. I couldn't believe she was trying to downplay the whole incident as if it were just a harmless joke. Jaden couldn't hold back any longer. He snapped and told her that enough was enough. He said she had crossed a line and needed to own up to her actions. He made it clear that the only way he would talk to her again was if she apologized to me. He told her that she had hurt me deeply, and it was not acceptable. Maria tried to interrupt, but Jaden didn't let her. He went on to say that from now on, they would only be seeing each other during holidays. No more random weekend visits, no unnecessary calls. He told her it would be like they were distant relatives who only met on special occasions. Maria was shocked and started to cry, but Jaden remained firm. I could see how painful it was for him to have to set such boundaries with his own mother, but he was determined to support me and ensure I felt safe and respected. Yesterday, while I was at work, I got a call from Maria. It caught me off guard because we hadn't spoken in a while, and I wasn't expecting her to reach out, especially during work hours. She told me she was outside my office and wanted to meet. I was surprised and didn't want her coming inside and causing any unnecessary drama, so I agreed to meet her outside to avoid a scene. We sat down at a small cafe across the street, and I could tell she was really upset. As soon as we began talking, she broke down in tears. It was awkward because people around us started to stare. She told me she couldn't believe what Jaden was doing. He wasn't answering her calls or responding to her messages. She was distraught and begged me to talk to him on her behalf, saying she just wanted things to go back to the way they were before. I want to point out that, up until this moment, Maria still hadn't apologized to me for what happened at the wedding. It was as if she was in complete denial about the impact of her actions. I told her that instead of coming to my office and causing a scene, she should be thinking about how her actions had affected both me and Jaden. I explained that she had ruined my wedding day, and it wasn't fair to expect me to just brush that aside and talk to Jaden for her. She tried to defend herself, saying she didn't mean any harm and was sorry I reacted the way I did. It was as though she couldn't see past her own perspective and understand that her actions had real consequences. She kept insisting that if she had known what would happen, she never would have done it. As she continued to cry, I noticed people in the cafe beginning to glance over with concern. The whole situation made me incredibly uncomfortable, and I just wanted to leave. I told her that I would see what I could do, but I didn't make any promises. Up until now, I still haven't talked to Jaden about it because I'm not sure if I'm ready to forgive Maria. After all, she only apologized after I prompted her to do so. My mom thinks I should just let it go and forgive my mother-in-law, but I'm not entirely sure. What do you all think? I'd really appreciate your advice. Update 1. Hi everyone, thank you so much for your comments and suggestions. It really means a lot to have a space where I can share my story and receive support. Maria's constant texts and calls were starting to wear me down. So I decided it was time to have another conversation with Jaden and figure out how we could move forward. I told Jaden that Maria had come to my office and apologized to me. It wasn't entirely true. Her apology wasn't exactly what I needed, but I felt like it was time to start mending things, even if just a little. I told him that I had forgiven her, which was mostly true, because I wanted to move past this mess and focus on our future. Jaden looked at me with concern and asked if I was really sure. I assured him that I was ready to move on, but we needed to set some boundaries with his mom to avoid any more drama. He seemed relieved that I was willing to forgive her, but he also recognized that this wasn't just about me, it was about us as a couple and our need for peace and stability. After our talk, Jaden texted Maria, letting her know that he was glad she had apologized to me and that we were ready to try and move forward. However, he also made it clear that the boundaries we set before still stood: no more dropping by unannounced, no more constant calls, and no more overstepping her limits. He told her that we needed some space to focus on our own lives. Maria responded almost right away, saying that she was sorry for everything and that she just wanted to be a part of our lives. She promised to respect our boundaries and give us the space we needed. I still have mixed feelings about the whole situation. On one hand, I'm glad that Maria seems to be taking our boundaries seriously, but on the other, I still feel a bit uneasy because I know that one slip-up could bring all the drama back. I'm trying to focus on the positive and remind myself that we are making progress, even if it's slow. Some of you have asked about my anxiety, and I want to thank you for your concern. I don't feel comfortable going into too much detail, but I do want to clarify that my anxiety wasn't about Jaden or our relationship. I knew he was the one for me from the moment things got serious between us. The anxiety was more related to the wedding day itself and the immense pressure that comes with planning such a big event. We had over 200 guests attending, and I was determined for everything to be perfect. I worried endlessly about all the little things that could go wrong, like the food not turning out well, the music not being enjoyable, or the decorations not living up to my expectations. The thought of any detail going awry made me incredibly anxious. I wanted our guests to have an amazing time and to remember our wedding as a beautiful and joyous celebration. Update 2. Hi everyone, something unexpected happened, and I'm still trying to figure out how to feel about it. Things were going smoothly until last weekend when Jaden received a call from Maria inviting both of us to dinner at her place. She mentioned that it was important for us to have this dinner to start getting things back to normal after everything that had happened. Jaden told me about the invitation and asked what I thought. I told him it would be okay and that we should go. Maybe this was her way of trying to make amends. When we got to Maria's house, she greeted us with a warm smile. But after dinner, Maria did something that completely took me by surprise. She got up, left the room, and came back with a check for $5,000. She handed it to me, saying she was truly sorry for ruining our wedding day and that, while she couldn't change the past, she wanted to give me this money as a way to make up for it. I was completely taken aback and immediately felt uncomfortable. It was such an unexpected gesture and I didn't know how to respond. I refused the money right away, telling her that I didn't need it and that we should just let bygones be bygones. Jaden agreed and told her that she didn't have to give us any money, but Maria was persistent. She wouldn't take the check back and ended up slipping it into my coat pocket. I was so shocked and didn't know how to handle it. She seemed almost desperate for us to accept it, which only made the situation more awkward. After that, we left her house and headed back home. On the way, Jaden and I talked about what had happened and we were both confused. Why would Maria give us such a large amount of money? It felt strange, and I couldn't help but wonder what her true intentions were. Was she genuinely sorry, or was this her way of trying to buy our forgiveness? I'm not sure, and it's left me feeling really unsettled. Jaden and I discussed it again, and we're still not certain about what to do. He's just as confused as I am, and we both want to approach this situation in a way that's fair and respectful. We don't want to hurt Maria's feelings or dismiss her attempts to make amends, but at the same time, we don't want to feel like we're being bought off. If anyone has any advice or has gone through something similar, I'd really appreciate hearing your thoughts. Update 3. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and honestly, not much has changed. We still have the check that Maria gave us, but we haven't cashed it. It's just sitting in our drawer, almost like a reminder of everything that's happened. I'm not really sure what we'll end up doing with it, but for now, it's just there. As for our relationship with Maria, things are pretty much the same. We're all in this holding pattern where we're trying to be civil and respectful without revisiting the past too much. She's been respecting our boundaries, which has been a huge relief. She doesn't show up unannounced anymore, and the constant barrage of texts and calls has stopped. It feels like she's genuinely trying to do better, and that gives me some hope for the future. Jaden and Maria still talk on the phone regularly, and their conversations seem to be positive. I'm relieved that their relationship hasn't suffered too much from everything that happened. I also talk to Maria sometimes. Our conversations are polite and a bit formal, but both of us are making an effort to keep things friendly. I think this will be my last update for a while. I don't expect much to change anytime soon, and I'm hopeful that things will continue to improve little by little. I want to focus on the positive and keep moving forward, and I believe that's the best approach for now. If anything major happens, I might pop back in with an update, but for now, I'm going to take a step back and concentrate on living my life. Thank you again for all your support, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. I lied about my baby daddy. Now he knows I'm pregnant and wants answers. Should I reveal the truth or continue my plan to raise the baby alone? I, 26F, grew up in the Midwest but went to college in California. There I met and dated Jeff, 26M, for our final 2 years of undergraduate. After graduation I stayed in California to get my master's degree while Jeff entered the workforce. We were happy together and we planned to get married after I got my master's. After I finished my schooling, Jeff got cold feet about getting married and eventually becoming a father. Abandonment issues from his bio dad leaving. So he broke up with me. Heartbroken feels like it would barely scratch the surface on how I felt. I had a great job in California, so I stayed in hopes that Jeff would come to his senses and we'd get back together. We never did. He met Grace, 25F, and started dating her about 5 months after we broke up. I started planning on moving back to my home state once I realized it was actually over. Then he and Grace broke up at the beginning of this year. Jeff and I ended up sleeping together a few times while they were broken up. It was a very public breakup, no cheating involved. About a week after the last time we had sex, he told me that he and Grace were getting back together. He said he couldn't remain friends with me because he still had feelings for me and he had to let them fade to be fair to Grace. His final words to me were to not call him unless I was literally dying and just wanting to say goodbye. I left California behind 3 weeks later. 2 weeks after I had returned home I found out that I was pregnant. It's Jeff's. I wasn't going to be that girl that uses a pregnancy to get a man back, so I deleted all my social media accounts and made new ones that don't have my name attached to them. The only Cali people I added were trusted friends who I knew either had no connection to Jeff or who were loyal to me and wouldn't tell him my new accounts. Early in my pregnancy I made the mistake of checking out Jeff and Grace's respective profiles and saw that they refer to each other as LOML, and Jeff even had a picture of them captioned saying he was going to marry that girl. That broke me all over again, and I have since blocked them both and decided I had to move on with my life. I'm now 6.5 months pregnant. Since moving back I have bought my own house in my home state and have been busy building a nursery for my baby. I already love this little baby in my belly and I feel 100% confident that I can raise and provide for him on my own with minor help from my family. One of my best friends back in California was having an engagement party. I won't be able to attend the wedding as I'll be busy with a newborn when it happens, so I decided to fly out to see my friends and offer my congratulations to the couple before my life becomes baby-centric. I got into town on Thursday, and honestly had a blast seeing all my friends yesterday, even though it's only been about 6 months since I last saw them. They were all respectful of my wishes not to take pictures of me below the chest. They did post some pictures of me online, but from the angles it just looks like I gained some weight in my face. Nothing that would give away my pregnancy. It's a couple days before my flight back home and the friend that I'm staying with suggested we go to the store because she wanted to get a scrapbook for our engaged friend. So we went to the store, and as we were getting ready to leave I saw Jeff's cousin Tanya, 22-ish, F, walk in. I talked to her several times at Jeff's family gatherings over the years, but we never really got along. She was always a bit too gossipy for me to like her. So of course she was the last person I wanted to see. The first thing she did was loudly announce that I was pregnant as if everyone in the store couldn't tell just by looking at me. Then she starts grilling me asking if Jeff knows. I said no and that he doesn't need to know as it's not his. That was a lie obviously, but I didn't want to open a can of worms. Tanya then tells me with how big my belly is that I'm far along and asks how I could move on so quickly. I told her that Jeff and I broke up a long time ago. She responded saying that everyone knows we were still hooking up at the beginning of this year. I did not know that was common knowledge. I figured Jeff would have kept his mouth shut about that. Anyway, I lied and told her that I already had a new boyfriend and that I was 5 months pregnant. She seemed to accept that and awkwardly congratulated me. My friend and I paid for her stuff and left immediately after that. I prayed that would be the end of it. Like I said, Tanya is a gossip, so of course she went and ran her mouth about seeing me pregnant just a few hours later. Now a bunch of my friends have messaged me saying that Jeff is blowing up their inboxes trying to reach me. None of them have told him my new number or social media, so he has no way of reaching me himself. My flight back home isn't for another 2 days and I'm freaking out. Some of my friends are saying that I should just tell him the truth now that he knows I'm pregnant. I still say I can get by pretending it's someone else's and that I'm not far enough along for it to be his. I honestly just want to ignore him and go back home. However, I'm having some doubts that that's the right choice and there isn't a consensus on what to do, so I'm turning to internet strangers. TLDR. I got pregnant by my ex. Moved away, planning to raise the child myself. His cousin saw me and told him I'm pregnant. Now he's trying to get a hold of me and I just want to go home and ignore him. Should I tell him the truth or just go home? Update 1. Hi everyone. So the consensus on my post was to tell Jeff about the baby being his. Even from just the first few comments that seemed clear. We did end up meeting up. It wasn't particularly interesting or dramatic, but if anyone cares, here's what happened. He got a hold of the friend I was staying with on Instagram. I wanted to just talk to him on the phone, but he insisted we talk in person ASAP. In retrospect, I should have just waited until the next day, but I kind of just wanted to get it over with, and it seemed like he did too. TBH, I thought he was going to tell me that he wanted nothing to do with the kid, because I didn't see any other reason why he wanted to talk in person right that second. Keep in mind it was almost 10 at night at the time. So my friend and I went to his parents' house where he was waiting. His parents always treated me like family, so I guess I felt comfortable being there, even though we probably should have met at a neutral location. When we got there, Jeff's mom answered the door. She hugged me and I could tell she wanted to touch my stomach, but she restrained herself and didn't even ask, thankfully. I always liked her. We made awkward small talk as she led me to the living room. It was clear that they had just had a party, as it was still messy with a bunch of drinking cups lying around and confetti on the floor. On the couch was Jeff and Grace holding each other's hands. I was surprised that I honestly felt nothing for him at first. His stepdad offered me a seat, but I chose to stand. I wasn't planning on being there long anyway. Jeff started off saying that I might be able to fool Tanya, but he knows there's no way I would have ever met a new guy and gotten pregnant that fast. So he asked why I didn't tell him. I told him the truth, that the last time we spoke he told me not to contact him unless I was literally dying. And I'm not dying. He told me that he was trying to be respectful to Grace and that obviously this would have been an exception. Grace chimed in to tell me that I ruined her proposal. I found out later, third-hand info, but knowing Tanya I believe it, that the party at his parents' house was for him to propose to Grace in front of all their friends and families. Tanya waited until after the proposal, and when people were giving speeches, she told Jeff she was so glad he got away from me and wasn't going to be stuck raising my baby. Then all hell broke loose at the party apparently. I had no idea that happened at the time, or I honestly would not have went to see him at all. But hearing that he proposed was when it hurt. He broke up with me because he was scared of marriage and kids, but he dated her not even half as long as we did and she got a ring. I put on a brave face. Or at least I think I did. And acted like it didn't bother me, but it absolutely did. His mom told Grace that it's not my fault and now wasn't the time for that. Then Jeff told me that, obviously I can't move now. I told him that I already did, and I was only in California for the weekend. He countered saying that I have to move back. I told him no, I'm not doing that. He said, well, I can't just leave. At that point I got frustrated and told him that I left months ago. My job is in my home state. I bought a house. All my doctor's appointments have been there. I established residency there a long time ago. California isn't my home anymore and hasn't been for half a year now. So then he got frustrated and got up to approach me asking if he's just supposed to send a paycheck once a month and saying this wasn't how it was supposed to happen. I don't really know what he meant by that second part, because he just found out I was pregnant a few hours before. But I assumed he was taking about his life plans? I forced myself to calm down and try to be empathetic. I told him that if he was worried about this screwing up his plans for the future, that he had nothing to worry about. I don't want or need anything from him. I've planned everything out, from finances to childcare when I return to work to even setting up my baby's college fund. It's all taken care of already. He didn't really say anything. I didn't know if he was thinking or just relieved that I had it all handled. I told him he can still get married to Grace and have his own family someday. I promised I wouldn't bother or blame him for anything. My baby will be loved and cared for. Jeff got teary-eyed and told me that I know how he feels about this. He was referring to when he broke up with me and said that he didn't want to be a dad because he didn't think he'd be a good one. He also has abandonment issues from his bio dad walking out on him, his siblings, and his mom when he was 6. I told Jeff that he's not him. His bio dad. That he's better than him and always will be. His mom started crying at this point, I guess, from seeing how his dad's abandonment still affects him to this day. I promised Jeff that I wouldn't let my baby think that Jeff was a deadbeat. I'd be honest that we just weren't meant to be together, and we live thousands of miles apart. He told me that he can't just not be in his kid's life and that I don't understand what it could do to them. He asked if we could please just figure something out together. I asked him what he realistically expected would be a solution. Because I'm not moving back to California, and I highly doubt he and Grace wanted to pack their bags and move that far away from their own families and friends. I said, I'm not going to be sending my kid on a plane every few months either because that's too much. Jeff didn't say anything to that, so I told him maybe that could be an option when he's older and has more independence, but right now it's not happening. Jeff's eyes lit up and he asked, "It's a boy?" I'd been careful not to reveal the gender up until then, but I messed up there. I nodded and he nervously asked if he could feel the baby. Before I could even respond, Grace let out this loud wail and stormed off to the kitchen. Jeff apologized to me and then went to go comfort her. His mom excused herself as well as she was still crying. So she left and her husband followed her. That left me and my friend awkwardly standing alone in the living room. All we hear is his mom sniffling in the hallway and Grace sobbing while talking to Jeff in the kitchen. It was so incredibly uncomfortable. And I know many will hate me for this, but I just felt overwhelmed by the whole thing. Maybe it makes me pathetic, but having to stand in the room where a party was just held to celebrate Jeff proposing to another woman hurt so damn bad. So I left. I told my friend let's get the hell out of here and we quietly walked out. We ended up staying in a hotel and I was able to get an earlier flight home on Sunday. Now I'm back home and putting my focus back on the nursery. I told my friends that I had talked to Jeff and I apologized if he still tried to reach me through them. I advised them to block him if it's too much. I know this isn't the end of things. I'm planning on reaching out to him again eventually. Even if he broke my heart, I still care about him, and I won't deny him a relationship with his kid if that's what he really wants. I have no idea how it's gonna work and I'm only allowed to update once, so I apologize that I won't be able to tell anyone who cares how it all turns out. Thank you for the advice on my last post. Even though everyone was downvoting me and the post itself, it was nice to get opinions without bias. Update 2. First, I've seen a lot of comments saying that Jeff proposed to Grace within a few months after they started dating. That's not true. Aside from the 1-month breakup where Jeff and I conceived the baby, they were together roughly a year and a half before the engagement, assuming they had no more breakups after. IDK their full history, nor do I care to. Second, I feel like people were being a bit harsh on Jeff. I can honestly say he is not an abusive or controlling person. The man never so much as raised his voice at me in the 4 years we dated. He was a bit overbearing by demanding that I had to stay in California because that's where he is, but he just found out about the baby and was panicking that I'd disappear and he wouldn't be able to contact me. Which, to be fair, that's exactly what I did, so I get it. I had a million thoughts, some wildly ridiculous when I think about it now, running through my own head when I found out too. Third, he wasn't juggling Grace and I at the same time like people think. She broke up with him. They both thought for good at the time. He and I started having sex again, but it wasn't like we were in a sequel of the lovey-dovey honeymoon phase. It was a weird and confusing time. We weren't talking about getting back together. I already had a start date for my new job back home and my move was scheduled. He didn't know any of that. I was still in love with him, of course, and I hoped he'd tell me he wanted to get back together and I would have stayed. But he didn't. Finding out he was getting back with Grace hurt, but I can't say I felt used for sex. I don't think either of us knew what the hell we were doing by sleeping together again in the first place. Jeff is a simple man overall. I promise he's not some supervillain taking advantage of women and playing with their emotions. I'm not making excuses for him. I wish it were that easy to say that he's a dirtbag and you should give me all your sympathy. In reality, I know who Jeff is as a person. Anyone who read my posts knows him as just a collection of bad and/or questionable choices he made. If you summarize anyone up to just the bad shit they've done, of course they'd come off as an unlikable person. Jeff's not evil or manipulative. He's just got some stuff he probably should have worked through years ago, and admittedly, I never thought his issues were that prevalent until we broke up. Plus, I'm positive that Grace knew we slept together while they were broken up. There's no way that was a shock to her. He would have told her himself, and even if he somehow hadn't, if Tanya knew, then everyone else knew shortly after. Guaranteed. Lastly, I appreciate everyone concerned about any custody issues that may arise from this. I was also amused by the people who were hyping themselves up thinking that I was delusional and actually going to be forced to put my baby on a plane by court order. I'm not sure why so many people on Reddit are used to dysfunctional relationships where judges and a huge custody battle need to be involved, but that's not us. Jeff and I were together, and very much in love for years. It might be hard to picture that when you've only read about the shitty end of our relationship, but everything before the breakup was an ideal relationship, which is exactly why it hurt me so much when he ended it. Things are weird now, but we don't hate each other. Our default option, even in a complicated situation like this, is not, we're taking this to court. That would be the last resort. I'm sure we'll work it out between ourselves long before it ever gets there. So on to the actual update. I planned on contacting Jeff after a couple weeks. I wanted to take time to gather my own thoughts and figure out what I wanted to say. Instead, I got phone calls from his number about a week after I returned home. He left a voicemail asking me to call him so we could talk. I was honestly furious because there's no way he should have been able to find my number unless somebody told him. It might not seem like it's a big deal, but to me I saw it as somebody who betrayed my trust in them. I texted him asking how he got my number. He said it wasn't important and that he wanted to talk. I said it is important to me, but he still didn't want to tell me. I told him we can talk when he tells me who he got my number from. So finally he told me who it was, and sent a screenshot of the conversation when I asked for proof. It was the second least likely friend I would have expected to break my trust. That's a whole other story though. So we talked over FaceTime and he told me that he absolutely wants to be in our son's life. He doesn't know how it's going to work long term, and neither do I. There was no threat of lawyers or his mom shouting grandparents' rights in the background like people were expecting. We're adults and we'll figure it out. The situation is not any easier to handle logistically, but emotions from that night have died down and we have clearer heads to move forward with. He did, however, have the audacity to tell me that he hates that I didn't tell him much sooner, and that I wasn't planning to tell him at all until Tanya found out, because he thought we meant more to each other than that. I told him I thought we did, until he told me not to contact him unless I was dying. That shut him up quickly because he knows now that it was an extreme and unnecessary thing to say even if he wanted to cut contact with me. He apologized for it and I apologized for not telling him about the baby myself. That's all we can really do. We're about to co-parent a child together so we don't get the luxury of holding a grudge with one another over past slights. He also told me that he and Grace are no longer together. He claims that it was a mutual decision, but that sounds too easy to me. How do you go from newly engaged to broken up in 18 hours with it being a completely clean process? I'm guessing he's just sparing me the ugly details on what must have actually happened. I do feel bad for Grace. Other than incorrectly assigning blame for her ruined engagement party, she didn't do anything wrong. I don't know her personally, but her proposal night should have been one of the best nights of her life, and it was ruined. I wouldn't want that for any woman. And because I know what everyone is gonna say, no, I am not seeing this as an opportunity to get back together with Jeff. Honestly, my focus is on my son right now. I'm not thinking about jumping into a relationship with anyone, much less the man who broke my heart once already. I think Jeff and I need to figure out how we're gonna co-parent first and foremost. And TBH, I want a man who loves me and chooses me for the person that I am, not because I happen to have given birth to his child. Plus, I don't know that I could ever get over that he proposed to Grace over me. Even if they broke off their engagement, I still want to know why she got a ring and I didn't. And I am going to ask eventually, but I don't think any answer will ever make it okay to me. A lot of people said it wasn't that he didn't want marriage, he just didn't want it with me. I find that hard to believe because, as I said above, we really had an ideal relationship. Our breakup wasn't a buildup of issues. It really was as simple as, you want marriage and kids, I don't. Which I think most would agree is just the natural end of a relationship. If it really is as simple as I just wasn't the one, then I want him to look me in the eyes and tell me that himself. Jeff is a terrible liar even when he's lying for a good reason, like a special surprise. He fidgets his fingers and can't maintain eye contact when he's lying. So if he looks me in the eyes and tells me his reason for why he chose to marry her and not me, I'll know if he's being honest. Jeff also told me that his mom wanted to send me stuff for the baby, so he asked for my address. I declined. I'm positive that there are no nefarious reasons and she's just excited and wants to help. This will be her first grandchild. However, I still felt a little uncomfortable giving them my home address. He's been texting me every day and calls me every night to say goodnight. Sometimes he wants to talk to the baby. It's a bit confusing for me because he broke up with me because he didn't want a kid, but now he wants to be involved to the point where he's going out of his way to contact me and ask if I need anything. It's strange, and I don't really understand how his brain works, but like I said in my last post, I won't deny him a relationship with his kid if he wants one. Jeff wants to visit me in person to talk properly, but I told him I'm not sure if that's necessary right now. He asked to come last weekend and I said no. Then he asked again about possibly coming this weekend, but I told him I can't, because I'm having my baby shower on Saturday. He wants to come. I'm not sure if that's a great idea. I'm not worried that he would say or do anything bad, and we're getting along over text VC. I can tell that he just wants to be involved, but part of me feels like it's sort of IDK, playing house almost? I guess it wouldn't be a big deal if I made it clear he would be here as a friend and the father of the baby, but not as anything more. My parents don't think it's a good idea, but I know that's just because they don't like Jeff, ever since he broke up with me. My sister, who is more level-headed, says that it could be a show of good faith that I'm serious about having a healthy co-parenting relationship, and it'll probably be easier to build that foundation now before the baby comes. My brothers don't care either way, but they say they're ready to beat up Jeff if he does or says anything stupid. He won't, but I love my brothers for always looking out for me. I'm not sure what I'm going to decide, but I know Jeff needs an answer soon so he can book a flight and a hotel room if I do say yes. I'm open to suggestions. Update 3. Hi everyone. I've been requested to give an update on the baby shower and whether or not I let Jeff attend. This post is rather lengthy as it covers a whole weekend, so I'm including a TLDR at the bottom. So I did end up allowing Jeff to come to my baby shower. When he called me the Monday night before my Saturday baby shower, I brought it up. I told him he could come if he agreed to 3 rules. We are not together. Don't touch me, hug me, or put your hands on my stomach unless I say it's okay. I agreed that we needed to have a serious talk. However, it only takes place after the baby shower. IDC if there's an awkward vibe because we have things we want to get out. We ignore it until after the baby shower. You stay in a hotel. I wasn't housing anyone. I needed my home to be my own place to return to if things got too overwhelming. Unsurprisingly, he was fine with all of those conditions and was just happy that he could come. I also told him he was free to invite his mother if she wanted to attend. He was relieved because she did mention wanting to come with him if he came. Everything was settled until the next day when he called to ask me if his brother and sister could come too. His stepdad had a prior commitment and wouldn't be able to attend. I shouldn't have been surprised Jeff asked about his siblings though. His family is really close-knit. They show up for each other and everything. I've never had any issues with anyone in his family. I always got along with his parents and siblings, especially his sister. I said it was fine. I didn't really care as long as they understood that I was the guest of honor at my baby shower and not a hostess, so I wouldn't be checking in with them the entire time. His sister also messaged me privately to ask if I was really okay with them all coming and that she and their younger brother could stay home if I didn't want them all there. It was totally unnecessary because I already said yes, but I really appreciated that she did that. Their flight got in on Friday afternoon. My parents decided to host a dinner for Jeff's family. They don't like Jeff anymore, but they felt that since he and I are now tied together for the next 18 years minimum, our families should be acquainted at least. When they got to my parents' house, the greetings were as awkward as expected. Jeff leaned down to my stomach and said hi to the baby. The baby kicked, and when I told Jeff, he got excited, so I offered to let him feel. I figured he should be able to have that moment. His mom was ecstatic that the baby was kicking, saying that he already knows his daddy's voice. She was so happy that I didn't have the heart to tell her that the baby had already been kicking for the past half hour before they got there. Dinner was fine. It was mostly talking about the baby shower. But we did also go around the table and everyone suggested names. I have to admit I'm a bit bummed about the naming. I was happy that I had sole decision power when it was just me, but now I have to get Jeff's approval too, which sucks. Some of the names he suggested were awful tbh. The day of the baby shower was long, but it went perfectly. Luckily Tanya was over 2,000 miles away, so she couldn't ruin the event. It was relatively big as my family has always done co-ed baby showers. We even had some games specifically for the men in attendance. I felt a little bit bad about Jeff just being a guest, so we tried to include him last minute by letting him give the guys the rules for the bottle chugging game. It was tea, not beer of course. And we added a last-minute best dad joke competition that he got to decide the winner on. We also took some pictures together. As I said in my last post, I didn't want to play house with him, but honestly I was having such a great time that I didn't even mind that both sides of the family suggested pictures. More importantly, he asked for my consent before putting his arm around me and touching my stomach for the pictures, which was such a relief that he was respecting the boundaries I gave him before he came. After the baby shower ended, I invited Jeff's family to my house. I mentioned not wanting to give my address to him in my last post. Some people misunderstood that as me trying to stay hidden forever. Obviously he was going to know my address once the baby came. I think what those people failed to realize is that it was all happening so fast. Jeff got my number one day and the next day he was asking for my address on his mom's behalf to send baby stuff. It was a lot and far too soon. But since everything was going great, I didn't mind so much inviting them to see my house. His mom cried when she saw the nursery. Then I started crying with her 'cause I'm a hormonal mess some days. The nursery is basically finished. I had just bought a different shade of blue paint because I didn't like the one I initially chose after looking at it for a couple weeks. I was planning on it being repainted the next week, but Jeff and his brother offered to do it while they were there. I said no obviously because they were guests. My dad chimed in to say to let him, Jeff, do it, because it's about time he stepped up to help. Obviously my dad knows that Jeff just found out about the baby recently, and I reminded him of that. But my parents were the ones who comforted me every time I cried when I first moved back home and again when I found out I was pregnant. It's gonna take a while for them to warm up to Jeff again. So Jeff and his brother painted the first coat with my dad while I talked to Jeff's sister outside. I asked her about Grace but she wouldn't tell me what happened. She told me that it was a conversation between me and Jeff. She did tell me that her whole family tried to talk Jeff out of proposing because it was too fast, but he insisted so they supported him. The only other thing she said was that Tanya has been banned from her family's events for the foreseeable future, and their families aren't on good terms as Tanya's parents don't think what she did was a big deal. After the guys finished painting, everyone except my sister and Jeff left. Jeff and I decided to talk that night. My sister was in the living room in case it didn't go well and I needed emotional support after Jeff left. He and I talked in my bedroom. My feet were killing me and I needed to lie down. So I did that and Jeff sat on the other end of the bed. Neither of us knew how to start, so I just asked him point blank why he changed his mind about kids. I reminded him that he broke up with me because he didn't want marriage or kids. He said that it's true that he didn't want kids and that he's still afraid he'll screw it up somehow, but that the baby already exists and so he already loves him and wants to be present for him. I then asked about Grace. I wanted to know why he proposed to her and not me. It's not relevant now, but I'm still human and I wanted to know what was different about her. He told me that he was never scared of marriage. He meant it when we discussed plans about marriage after I was done with school. He wanted to be married to me. It was just the kids part that he couldn't do. He says that he just added marriage into his reasoning for our breakup because he felt like it would be easier for me to accept. In his head I might have been able to overlook the kids thing at least for a few years, but he knew if he said he didn't want marriage either, then I wouldn't stay. IDK. Why he didn't just talk to me about it. Instead, he broke my heart because he thought he was setting me free. As for why he proposed to Grace, she was on the same page as him regarding children. She didn't want them. He said he talked to her about getting a vasectomy, and she was on board with his decision. He admitted that they moved too fast. She was pressuring him to propose to her and she wanted the big party, so the proposal wasn't a surprise event. Everyone knew what it was gonna be, including Grace, as she practically planned the thing herself. All of his family tried to talk him out of it and wait a bit longer, but he was afraid that he would lose another woman and didn't want to make the same mistake again. His words, not mine. I asked why they broke up because I didn't believe him that it was a clean mutual decision. He said it was mutual but a bit messy. Apparently he and Grace talked that next day after everything went down. She told him that I ran away and to just let me go. She said she was willing to reconsider kids if he realized that he changed his mind, but that she didn't want to be a stepmom to my child. She basically gave him an ultimatum. He could choose either her or the baby but not both. He asked her for the ring back right then and there. Apparently she threw it at him along with a few other heavier objects. He says they're fully done. He tried to do the sweet talk thing, telling me that he's glad it was me and not her that got pregnant. He says I saved him from making a huge mistake in marrying her. He regrets everything and wishes that he could redo the last 2 years and never break up with me. Then he asked if I could ever see us getting back together. I got frustrated at that point, and told him that he can't just keep jumping back and forth between us. He tried to defend himself, and while I agree that I don't think he does it with ill intent, it is what he's doing. I told him that he keeps letting his fear make hasty decisions for him and he needs to work on that with a therapist. I'm about to raise a baby. I don't need to be raising a man too. He did agree to go to therapy to work on his issues. Whether he actually does it or not, I don't know. I did make it clear that he needs to go into it understanding that it's for his and our son's benefit, and not just to win me back, because that's not my focus at all right now. That was pretty much it for our talk. At some point he ended up laying down beside me so we were facing each other. There was no touching. We just talked while laying beside each other. I got sleepy and he left in an Uber back to his hotel. They were supposed to leave on Sunday, but their flight back home was delayed by a day due to the weather in California. So the next morning they all came over and Jeff and his brother finished the second coat of paint on the nursery. It came out perfectly. I'm really glad I went with the second color choice. I made the guys lunch as a thank you for their work, even though they were both happy to do it for their son and nephew. Jeff told me that he's planning on moving to my home state within the next month because he wants to be here for the baby's birth. His job does offer remote work, so he could do it without having to find a new job. As of now he says it would be temporary, but admitted that he doesn't know if he'll be able to leave once the baby is here. We'll see what happens. They left the next day while I was at work. Jeff stopped by my work to say goodbye in person. My co-workers all melted when they saw him say bye to the baby and promise him that he'd be back soon. They all think I should give him another chance for the baby's sake. Although I suspect that most of them are also easily swayed by the fact that Jeff is 6'3" and conventionally attractive, which they were constantly bringing up at my baby shower and when he came to say bye. Jeff and his family made it back home safe. I haven't heard much else about his plans to move here, but I imagine that will take a while anyway. TLDR. Jeff and his family came to my baby shower. Everything went fine. I got the answers that I wanted about why he proposed to Grace and why he changed his mind about being a dad. He's agreed to get therapy for his issues. We're moving forward with our co-parenting plan and he's likely going to be moving here, at least temporarily, when the baby is born. Comments. Just as an FYI, you still technically have sole naming power. If you don't want to exercise that right in order to keep the peace, be nice, that's up to you, but you don't have to. Honestly, it sounds like Jeff will go along with any name you like at this point just to keep you happy. I'm glad things are working out for you. Jeff's family sounds amazing. I see what you're saying, but I believe in choosing my battles. If my options are to find a name we're both happy with or risk bottled resentment from Jeff over me making a unilateral decision, because you're right, he would agree to me picking what I want just to keep the peace. I'm going with the first option. There are much more important things to hold my ground on regarding my child's future. I've seen people commenting on the surname too. Where I live, the kid almost always takes the dad's last name with few exceptions. Even my parents are expecting the baby to have Jeff's surname now that he's involved. While I wouldn't give any woman grief for wanting to pass her name on, it's not important to me. I know he's mine and that's all I need. Also, I've got 3 brothers, so the odds are extremely likely that our family name will be passed on through them anyway. I'm so happy for you. You indeed saved Jeff from marrying Grace, who seemed to be overbearing and domineering. I hope you and Jeff will co-parent peacefully. If you decide to give him a second chance, make him grovel. I bet his family are happy that Grace is gone. She sounds like a high-maintenance woman. Planning her own big engagement party after pressuring the guy to propose. Wow. Nobody said it directly, but I was definitely getting vibes that his family didn't like her very much. I don't know her personally, but she sounds a bit immature. Throwing things at someone during a breakup is just not okay. So Grace manipulated everything then. He was going to get married to the wrong person and regret it years later. I don't know if she manipulated him, but she definitely pressured him. He said that she told him she didn't want to waste her 20s on him if he wasn't serious about getting married eventually. He didn't tell me this, but I'm guessing maybe he told her about the reason for our breakup and she didn't want the same thing to happen to her, so she pressured him into proposing. Again, that's just a guess though. Oh, I have my own opinion, but girl, you are doing all very well and everything was perfect. He gave you a good explanation, and you gave him a great insight. I love what you said about how his fear was taking decisions and advice. I hope all of you find your way. Keep us informed. Yeah, his answer for every decision he made was, because I was scared of, which is just not a good way to go about anything. That's something he definitely needs to work on. My foster family of 11 years is kicking me out by the end of the week. I have nowhere to go and I feel broken. I, 18 male, was told earlier today that I need to pack up and leave by the end of the week. I still feel in shock. I was removed from my biological family when I was 7 due to issues with my parents. I was then placed in foster care and then matched with a couple who I will call the Peters. It's not their real name. No matter how much I actually want to blast their real info, I won't. The Peters were always really nice to me, and since I moved in when I was pretty young, after a while I started to consider them my parents. I called them Mom and Dad, treated them as my parents, treated their biological son as my brother. I wasn't their only foster child. They also have a 9-year-old boy who has lived with us for a little over a year. I was never adopted by them. I know why, because they live off the fostering allowance. Something that never really bothered me. They told me that it didn't matter, and that legality didn't make us a family. Which I believed. I went on their agency website earlier today and I found out that they are getting paid at least $2,400 for me per month. Or at least they were. Since I turned 18 they stopped getting the allowance. However, they applied for a staying put arrangement for me, which meant they would continue getting paid something as they continue to support me and let me live with them. It wasn't as much, I think it was like $1,000 per month. They told me they had it approved until I was 21, so I thought I'd be able to stay at least until I finished uni. They sat me down today and told me I had to leave. They told me that fostering is a business and that they couldn't afford to keep me on just the stay put arrangement allowance. They told me I had until the end of the week. 4 days. How generous of them. They said they need my room because they want to get a new foster placement. They literally told me it's not personal. Like that makes me feel any fucking better. They said they would still consider me like a son, not their son anymore. Like a son, and that they want to keep in touch. What a joke. They choose to kick me out. An 18-year-old with no job, no income, no nothing. About to start university. Yet their bio son who is 25 gets to stay? So yeah. I guess fuck me, right? I'm just the one no one ever wanted. I guess I wasn't ever truly part of their family. Relevant comments. Accomplished EMU 591. I am sorry for your situation. However, you should contact the agency that was paying them. Tell them what they did, and ask for referrals to other organizations that can provide you assistance with finding employment and attending uni. It is even possible that your report of their behavior would make them ineligible for further paid foster placement. Not likely, but possible. No address 1159 responding to Accomplish EMU 591. Calling your former social worker is 100% a great idea, OP. Or going to Citizens Advice. There is plenty of support available to former foster children and they will help you find what you're eligible for. The part about reporting them, sadly there wouldn't be anything legally wrong or against any fostering practices for what they're doing. As long as they don't continue to claim on the staying put order, that is. In England, fostering is generally treated more as a business than as something you do for love, as it is in the US. Which has its upsides and its downsides. Morally though, the Peters are despicable people in my opinion. Jen in Miami. I'm so sorry. If it makes you feel any better, many parents kick their biological kids out once they turn 18 too. OP. Answer. It doesn't really, if I'm honest. Mouse and Ladybug. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. These are garbage people. I'd be reporting them for fraud. They can't accept money to have you stay there if you aren't. OP. Answer. They'll probably cancel the staying put arrangement altogether, so I don't think they'll continue to be paid for me after I leave. Though that is something I am 100% checking in a few weeks. Po boy from Po family. They're doing it for the money. That is why. It's unfortunate and they sound horrid. I'm sorry, OP. I hope it all works out for you. Leaving will suck, but at least you won't be surrounded by greedy leeches. OP. Answer. I thought they were my family. I'm genuinely considering going no contact with them after I'm set up whatever I'll end up doing next week. Cucky 94. You absolutely should. You were 7 when you went into their care. They denied you the opportunity to find a real family who love you for you and not the dollars you brought in. Fuck them. You deserve better. OP. Answer. I doubt anyone would have adopted me. I wasn't a great kid, in truth had more issues than a hospital piss pot. I wasn't a great kid in any sense. But I changed. Genuinely I changed. I can't help but wonder if this is because of how I was as a young child. Nene 1 through 0388. I'm so sorry this has happened to you, honey. You must be feeling awful. Do you have a care leaver's personal advisor? Not sure which area you are in. They should be supporting you to find move-on accommodation in a supported setting if needed, or support you to approach your local housing office for support. Without cause, your foster family cannot give you 4 days notice to leave. They would need to give formal notice, which is usually about 4 weeks. It would be worth calling your Children's Services Duty, VOR, out-of-hours telephone number and explaining the situation, because it will be whoever is responsible, i.e. the personal advisor's team, who will be paying the staying put fees to the foster carers. So there is someone who is responsible and will need to provide immediate support to help you. OP. Answer. Yeah, I'm meeting with him today. I'm going to tell him they've given me a verbal 4-day notice and that I need urgent help. If I'm honest, I don't want to stay here anymore. The whole dynamic has changed and none of them even look me in the eyes now. But I'm not going to make myself homeless, so I'll stay until I have accommodation and I'm not leaving the house until I do. Brightad 3 is 06. It is awful, but if they counted on that money to make rent, they might not have much of a choice. I wouldn't conduct myself that way, But not every foster couple is rich. OP answer. They own their own home. And just some quick math for anyone interested. I don't know what package I was placed on because there's a difference allowance for each package. But according to the fostering agency website, the minimum was $2,400 for me. It goes to a maximum of $3,400 per month. But I'll estimate off the lowest. Mine obviously stopped, but it would be the same for the 9M foster placement they have now. So, $2,400 x 12 for ours, $28,800 per year. Plus my $12,000 per year from the staying put order. Gave them a nice $40,800 per year. Which they would pay little, if any, tax on, as a fostering allowance is taxed very lightly here. That may not sound like a lot to Americans with your high wages, but the average post-tax wage where I live is $23,985 per year. They had enough, I think. Mini update. Okay, thank you guys for all your advice. Honestly, I was in a state of shock yesterday. Maybe still am today. I wasn't thinking straight. I only slept 2 hours last night, that's all, so I'm probably a little delirious today as well. Firstly, I have contacted my personal advisor. He'll be having an emergency meeting with me at 1:30, so I'll have more details about what's going to happen to me then. He'll hopefully be able to sort out emergency accommodation for me. Secondly, to those of you saying the Peters can't legally just give me 4 days notice to leave, I will definitely be mentioning this to my personal assistant and get his advice on it. I don't want to stay here any longer than I need to because they told me it's like I don't exist. They just look right through me. But I'm not going to move out until I have safe accommodation for me. I will outright refuse. I am not going to be made homeless. Thirdly, those of you saying contact my uni. I have an offer from them, but it's only conditional if I get my predicted A levels. Hopefully I will, but since I'm not technically a student yet, I don't know if they will actually provide any support yet. Finally, I am also going to ensure that the staying put allowance stops. I will tell my personal assistant today that it should surely be stopped if I'm not living with them. Luckily, I have some money saved. Some people here have said I should be entitled to a bursary when I start uni, and I'll have my maintenance student loan to help me. I've already started looking for a job. Relevant comments Snaggle00T4. Good luck. I'd cut all ties with them. They are not good people. Celebration Main, 8329. Good luck OP. I am here rooting for update 2. Okay, hi everyone. I just got home and am feeling incredibly tired, so this is just going to be a short update. Basically, I had a big long meeting with my personal assistant and he was very sympathetic and felt upset that the Peters are treating me this way. We had one meeting and then I went to get food while he spoke to the Peters directly, and then I came back to meet him again to let me know everything that has happened. He's putting me on the list for social housing. I am hopeful that it will not be long until I am able to get my own house. I recorded the meeting because I'm so sleep deprived, and also, I have really bad memory processing for long things like that because of my dyslexia. Autism or something, I'm not sure. I can listen to it again tomorrow after I've slept, but from what I gather they will help me with paying for rent costs. I will also get some money to help pay for furniture and things like that. When he spoke to the Peters, I don't know if he said they had to keep me housed for a while or asked them to. I'm not sure. But they've agreed to keep housing me until the end of August, so at least I don't have to worry about everything happening in 3 days. He did tell me that if I feel uncomfortable, I can be moved into a youth hostel place while they wait for a property to be available for me. But I said, if I can, I would rather stay with the Peters until I am ready to move. Even if it makes me feel a little uncomfortable. He told me they will continue getting paid the staying put allowance until the day I officially move out, and then it will be stopped. On a completely separate note, my best friend and I had a huge argument earlier. He said that I'm being ungrateful, and honestly what he said really hurt me. We had a huge argument. I just thought out of everyone he would get me and understand what I was going through. Maybe not. Maybe I'm being unreasonable. I am really tired, so maybe my emotions are just not being controlled well at the moment. I am going to talk to him tomorrow after I've slept, and I'm hoping this argument will just blow over because I need him at the moment. I don't feel like I have anyone else. Oh, and I haven't read all the comments because I didn't expect to get so many. Thank you everyone who has offered support. It is genuinely so sweet and I am so thankful. Relevant comments Jen820. Glad things are working out. Don't worry about your friend. Right now you are in survival mode. Trying to make sure you aren't on the streets. Hope everything keeps working out for you. OP answer. He said I should be grateful that they kept me that long anyway. Like the fuck? I'm not a pet. He also said some other things like how it's good that they're going to help another child like I was. Which is true, and I get that it's a good thing what they're doing to help people. But him saying those things make me feel like I'm being crazy for wanting to stay like I was promised by them. Ugh, I'm too tired and maybe I'm being irrational. I'm going to talk again with him tomorrow and say I'm sorry. Long and unimportant rant. It never bothered me that they were paid to keep me before. Genuinely never bothered me at all. I always knew I was a foster child. I was about 15 when I learnt that they were paid money to look after me, and I told myself it was a good thing. And it probably was. I have had loving parents for 11 years, which is more than some people can say. I just didn't ever think they'd make me move out when the payments stopped being as high. I found out that when I was still a child they were paid $111.82 per day for me. That's $40,114 per year. I had never felt different to the family. I had always felt loved and secure. I don't understand why they have changed their minds about me. None of them will even look at me in the eyes anymore. And it's gotten to the point where I can't leave my room anymore because all I feel is the absence of the love that used to be there. I didn't come down for any meal times, which was a rule that you had to before. If I didn't go down before, I wouldn't have gotten any food. But Mum brought it up to my room and knocked on the door to say she was going to leave it there for me. I've used that 100 times over and over again in my head, to try and convince myself that they still love me. I called her by her first name when I came home yesterday. Not Mum, Claire. She looked upset when I did that, and a part of me is happy about that, and a part of me feels cruel for it. I knew it would hurt her and I did it anyway. In some ways I wish she wakes up to the pain she's causing me. I hope she takes it back and says that it is a lapse in judgment, and that she loves me and wants me to stay. But if that were going to come, I think it would have already. I guess I'm not worth the $76 per day they lose by not replacing me with another foster child. When I feel bad about hurting them, I remind myself they're kicking me out to get an extra $76 a day. That's what I'm worth to them. $76 per day. Relevant comments. OP respond. I don't expect anyone to read this or care, but I want to say thank you for the immense love you've all shown me. I feel nothing but gratitude to you all. My in bad book. I'd like to think, at least a part of the reason for their lack of eye contact and emotional withdrawal is due to their feelings of absolute embarrassment, guilt and shame. That she seemed upset with being called her name, I feel, somewhat supports this. And they should feel this way. However, I really do hope they can put these feelings, and their egos, to the side and take steps to actively make amends and rebuild the relationship. I really am sorry this is happening, and I'm so very happy you had a secure and safe childhood. Edit. To add, I follow you and read your posts because I really want you to be okay. You didn't deserve this. No child does, no matter their struggles. I've been thinking about you and putting all the good thoughts out there for you. Emgen France, your feelings are valid and important. You are not alone. Adopted is a great group here on Reddit just for adoptees. People who understand because they've been there. You can also find groups on Facebook, and there may even be local groups in your area if you'd like to connect with people in person. You're doing amazing. Okay, I am going to try and condense this as much as possible. Basically, 18 male, got removed from my bio family when I was 7. I got taken into foster care and was matched with a family called the Peters. I was then raised by the Peters for the remainder of my life, from 7 all the way until now. They had originally told me that I was able to live with them indefinitely, as I considered the Peters my family. And they applied for a stay order with me, which basically means they continued to get paid something like $250 by the government to recognize that they're continuing to support a former foster child, me, after my 18th birthday. As I said before, I was always told by Peters I could stay as long as I needed to set myself up in life. Their bio son, who I considered my brother, is 25 and still lives with them. He doesn't work but graduated university 2 years ago. I have a conditional offer at a local university which I'm studying classics with aims to become a teacher. I start in October, if I get my predicted A-levels, which I think I will. But the Peters told me that I had to leave by the end of the week because they wanted to get another foster child. This is something they really sprung on me. And it's been extremely difficult for me. I had to get in contact with my social worker who spoke with the Peters, and now they're letting me stay until the end of August, but the whole family has changed. I explained all this to my best friend, and I said I was considering going no contact with them after I moved out. He ranted to me about how ungrateful I'm being to them. And how they raised me for 11 years and now they want to give that to another child in a position like I was. I get that, and that's part of the reason why I feel so guilty. My friend isn't speaking to me now, calling me selfish for wanting to stay with the Peters like I was promised. And for them trying to get rid of me with 4 days' notice. There were plans they could have taken to transition me into independent living before I turned 18, and they chose not to take part in them, because they told me I could always stay with them. The one time of my life I needed my friend, And he's gone too, and I feel so alone, and I can't understand why he's taking their side over mine. I understand the argument that they will continue to help another child, but at the same time I just wish they didn't have to throw me out to do so. When I suggested to my friend they could have asked their bio son to move out instead of me, and he just said, "I'm being selfish." I still don't even know if I am going to go no contact with them. I just said I felt like doing it, and I wish I didn't even say that because I didn't expect it to cause such an argument. So, am I the A? Relevant comments. Top reveal 847. You poor kid, your friend is an AH, and you're certainly not. Even if there is another kid waiting and desperately in need, they could have and should have at least let you plan ahead more than a few days in advance, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Are you foster parents at least helping you find a place? Edit to add that you should let someone at the university know. IDK how it's done where you are, but some universities have programs for stuff like this. Wardog 1983. You not the A. The Peters are using the fostering system to support themselves. They do not care about helping the kids. They say that to justify their callous treatment of you. They should not be foster parents. I'm sorry about your friend, his point of view is a betrayal because it is simply wrong. Scott's way. Hey. Dude, my cousin used to foster kids. She fostered 3 sisters and 1 other girl. I use the words because she adopted them as she wasn't in it for the money. OP answer. I don't really even care that they were looking after me and getting money for it. It doesn't bother me. I never knew how much they were getting to look after me, but I did know they were being paid. It does make me hurt and betrayed that they're kicking me out for a difference of 70-something pounds a day. Material, Cellist 4133. Not the A. Also, you are far from ungrateful. You were 100% grateful until they made it about money. You thought they took care of you because they were good people. Instead, they took care of you for money. It's an even exchange, nothing to be grateful about. Peters found my Reddit posts. The Peters' son, Jamie, has found my original Reddit post. I guess I should have been more careful with the details, but my mind was so frantic at the point of writing it I just couldn't think straight. I'm not sure how he found it, but considering it has almost 10k upvotes, and Jamie was the person who introduced me to Reddit, I guess it might have just popped up on his page. Does anyone know if it might have popped up to him because we're on the same network, in the same location? A few hours ago, Jaime came to my room. He showed me the original post and asked if I had written it. At first I tried to deny it, but I'm an awful liar, so he just knew. He asked why I didn't tell him about this, and I said I thought he knew. He told me he had no idea and would not have supported his parents throwing me out if he did. He was told I requested to move out. He genuinely seemed shocked and appalled at the details in the post. Against my wishes, he shared the post in the family group chat. He did this out of a place of wanting to defend me. Mom, Dad, I really think you should read this and see the impact this is having on. But I really wish he didn't do it. They've both read the message, but neither have responded. I have not left my room since. I'm really anxious right now. Like I'm at the level before a panic attack. I can feel one coming on. Relevant comments. Polly6119. Stay calm and know that you did nothing wrong. They may try to gaslight you. They may lie to your brother. They don't have a good track record for being decent people. But no matter what they do, remember you did nothing wrong. They cannot throw you out because of it. They have learned their lesson on that. I'm glad to know your brother didn't agree with their horrible decision, and I'm glad that he found out. Him not looking you in the eye these past couple of days may have had something to do with the tension already in the air and him thinking you just up and wanted to leave. I hope it turns out that they realize their mistakes and apologize profusely. But brace yourself for that not happening and that they may get upset with you for airing dirty laundry. They may end up trying to guilt you and blame everything on you. They may do nothing. Please remember, no matter what they say and no matter what your ex-best friend said, you did nothing wrong. Your feelings are valid. You deserve love. You did not deserve what they did to you. Afternoon agitated 803. Calm and breath. Sounds like he's being a big brother and sticking up for you, because for him you're his sister and he loves you. So talk to him more, lean on him more. He's an adult, he can handle it. The moving out. The Peters could have really dealt with this in such a better way. They could have talked to you about now that you're an adult and soon going to university. We'll go and talk to your caseworker about finding you your own place to live, and we'll be able to help another little kid just like you when you came here, but you've got to come round for Sunday dinner. Or something like that. They handled this so badly, saying yes you can stay till 21, then telling you exactly the money they receive, and then telling you to get out by the end of the week. Where did they expect you to go, FFs? Do the foster parents not work at all? Or are the children their only job? And although he's being a good brother to you right now if he finished uni 2 years ago, why isn't he working or getting training or something? 2 years of not putting his degree to use will show those in whatever field he did the degree in that he has no work ethic at all. I've just tonight been reading through all your posts and I completely understand why you're thinking of going LC with foster parents. They've handled it really badly, and next time you see your caseworker ask them, do foster parents not get training or anything on how to handle this situation of when a child is reaching 18? Tell the caseworker you want notes or something put on their file of how badly they have handled this, so that any future foster kids they look after their file shows. This is what they do when the money drops down, so that a future caseworker can put the child's needs first and they don't go through what you went through. With your friend, he's being a bit of an asshole. I'm guessing by the language used he has the privilege of living with his birth parents his whole life and is in no danger of being told he has to get out in 5 days? He is not acknowledging he's in a position of privilege in this situation. I'd message him and say, these last few days have been crazy, and although you wouldn't know what it feels like to be in this position, I was just looking for a friend to listen to. It's been a stressful and upsetting few days and I don't want to fall out with you. And just suggest something you usually do together if you play a computer game or just hang out. End it with, do you want to play comp hang out tomorrow? And leave it at that and see what they say. Fairy Rebels Wild, to the Peters. From OP's posts, it sounds like you had a genuine relationship with him. Or at least he felt you did. It's good that you were able to provide a stable family life for him. Considering that you had originally told OP he could stay and you had applied for him staying put, I'm going to assume that somehow your circumstances changed. That sucks. But you handled this in the worst way possible. You should have approached OP in a collaborative manner, explaining the situation. Phrased it as not being able to support him anymore, rather than fostering being a business. Explored if him getting a job and financially contributing would have helped. Actually help him connect with his personal assistant for those transitional services and with their advice, making a realistic move-out date. Everything you did was wrong. Saying fostering as a business taints every family interaction or affection as fake and transactional. I dare say pretending to be his family is worse than if you had kept it businesslike from the beginning. Verbal 4 days notice is actually heartless. How cruel and frankly, unrealistic, especially as you knew, being the ones to have originally allowed him to stay, that he wasn't applied to the transitional services yet. You can't expect him to continue treating you as family while you treat him as a former business colleague. Again, heartless and unrealistic. I hope you learn to be more empathetic to your future foster kids. Or at least, be honest to them about your intentions from the beginning. What I'm going to send in the family group chat. Is this a bad idea? To Matt and Claire. I came to you as a 7-year-old. A 7-year-old who had never felt love or affection, or anything remotely nice. I was taught at a young age to fear those in authority. To fear the sudden changes in the moods of my birth parents. I was taught to bottle up my emotions and my pain and never show it. When I first came to you, my life was ruled by fear and anxiety. I know my behaviors back then were awful, and were a struggle to manage. I had been taught there were no consequences for some actions. And firm, scary and hard consequences for others. The worst part was that those actions never seemed to be consistent. I could do something one day and be praised by my birth family, and another day I would be beaten. Love was not something given, it was something earned. It was conditional and shallow. You both showed me another way. You showed me love and affection, and at first it felt confusing and hard to comprehend. I couldn't see myself as anything more than a nuisance. I couldn't see why someone would love me. I couldn't understand why you weren't beating me. Do you remember me telling you, you can hit me if I am naughty, I won't mind. Slowly you taught me to trust and love myself, and those around me. You showed me that no matter what I did, you wouldn't give up on me. You wouldn't send me away or hate me. And I really tried to make you. I know that. I was scared. You made me realize that it wasn't my own fault I was in care, and that I wasn't to blame for the things that happened to my birth family. You showed me appropriate outlets to my fears. You showed me love, compassion, and kindness. The first day I remember feeling truly safe was when I was sitting in your arms at 8 years old watching Shrek. I still think back to that moment. It probably just felt like another day to you. But to me, it is a core memory in my life. It's a moment that shapes the way I see myself. You sat up with me when I was worried about moving up to secondary school. You comforted me when my birth mom told me she no longer wanted to be part of my life. You were there when XX broke up with me when I was 15 years old and I felt like my whole world was ending again. You encouraged me to go beyond my studies and apply to university. The most important thing you showed me was that I was worthy of being loved and respected. You never gave up on me. I am who I am today because of what you did. I look at myself and I see compassion, care and kindness. And in those traits I see you. You weren't my birth family, but you were my family. My only family. I don't know what changed. Why has there been a switch? Why have you gone from the loving and caring parents you were? When I leave my room now, I no longer feel that love and kindness that brought me out of the pits of despair as a child. It's almost as if you have completely altered the way you see me, and I just can't understand why. A few days ago you told me I had to move out. You gave me 4 days notice to leave my family. You sent me back into feeling like that child at 7 years old. I'm not saying this to guilt you or to ask you to let me stay. That is past now, and unfortunately, I don't think I'll ever be able to see you the same way again. I understand if you were hard on money or if you wanted to help another child like me. But why not talk to me? Why spring it on me and then act like I don't matter? Why tell me it's just business? Did you think that would make it hurt less? Since you told me my whole life has been turned upside down and I don't know how I will make it to the other side. If I had felt like this a few weeks ago, do you know who I would have gone to? I would have gone to you. I would have told you my worries and my fears, and you would have said the exact right thing, and then we'd sit together and watch some awful TV show. And now, I have no one again. I feel like I'm being told for the second time in my life that I don't deserve a family. And this time I have no one to pick me up off the edge. That was always you, Mom and Dad. It was always you I could rely on. Why are you giving up on me now? Relevant comments. OP respond. I really feel like today the whole thing has just hit me in the face again. I think the emotions I was feeling were being blocked, and today they've been let out and I've done nothing but cry all day. Jay loves writing. Send it to them. Let them know how you feel, how they hurt you, and that they cannot expect you to ever contact them again after you leave. They need to know how you feel. Send it to them, and if you want to, leave the GC. Because they may try to justify their actions, and you don't need to hear it. OP answer. The sad thing is I don't think I even want that. I want them to love me again. I've contacted my personal assistant, and I'm moving out today. My personal assistant is allowing me to store my things I can't take with me in his garage. It's kind of him. He's found me a place at a local hostel. I'll get my own room apparently, which was a big deciding factor on if I wanted to move in or not. The hostel works with the LA and houses a lot of care leavers, the English term for someone who has aged out of foster care, while they wait for their own houses. I haven't sent the message yet, but I know my foster brother Jamie has seen it. Yesterday I felt overwhelming emotions, today I feel none. I don't know which is better. I'll send it once I'm moved out. I have a room, so I'll be gone in a few hours. I still haven't spoken to them, but I just can't face it anymore. I am sick of being anxious and stressed about this. I guess they did get their 4-day notice after all. Edit 1. I have just left Peter's house for the last time. The room is ready for me at the hostel. I feel so weird and sad and lonely right now. I've ordered myself a pizza to have for dinner today. And my PA even paid for it. I just want to get in bed and cry. My head is spinning thinking about everything I need to do. Wish me luck, everyone. Edit 2. I want to clarify something. I was hurt and in shock when I wrote my first post, but I want to make it understood that I was never eligible to be adopted. At first the end goal for me was to reintegrate myself into my birth family. By the time we knew that was never going to happen, I wouldn't have accepted adoption as I wanted to keep my legal ties with my birth family. The Peters always told me it didn't matter that I didn't want to be adopted, and they loved me the same anyway. Maybe it wouldn't have changed anything, or maybe it would have. They were paid fortnightly for caring for me, and they would get $1,865.48. That's $4,702.48 per year they got just to raise me, which is about $52,295.77. I keep thinking about that number. Was that all I was? I wonder what I would change if I could go back in time. Edit 3. I am settled in the hostel now. It's not exactly luxury, to say the least. But at least I'm here now. I sent the text message, very slightly altered from the one I wrote yesterday. And then I left the group chat. I also posted it on Facebook. That was probably the wrong thing to do. I don't know. Final update. This is going to be my final update on all of this. I want to put everything behind me. Claire rang me crying, saying she had no idea I felt like this. How? How could she not know? She said she was sorry and begged me to come back. God. How do I ruin everything? She was telling me all these things about how she regrets the past few days so much and wishes she could take it all back. I said this is not fair. She cannot throw me out and then call me crying. I said it's manipulative. She just kept saying sorry. She said she loves me and wants me to come home. Jesus. This is just a lie, right? She must have known. Am I the bad person here? I feel so confused, I don't know what to do. I just hung up and then she started texting me and I blocked her. But now I feel like I'm the bad person here. I'm so tired of this. Of all of this. I want nothing to do with any of them. I don't think Reddit is good for me. I'm not sure any of this is good for me. I'm going to delete the app. Sorry everyone. Relevant comments. Calamity Curls. I've been following along with your updates as you post them, OP, and I want to tell you that I'm so sorry you're going through this, that you deserve better, and that you are so strong in a situation where you shouldn't have to be. I'm glad your personal assistant is helping you, and I wish you nothing but success and happiness. OP answer. Thank you. I considered contacting my bio mom. Last time I spoke to her was when I was a young teen. But I think it might just be seeking out something to make myself feel more hurt, and I don't think I could deal with any more rejection. To bigger and better things. 8 marshmallows. I can't believe the Peters were too cowardly to even say anything to you. Will this whole situation make them ineligible for future placements? I would think there is a reporting structure and your personal assistant would be obligated to flag their file for this. OP answer. Doubt it. My personal assistant didn't even seem shocked by the situation as a whole, and I think my parents have framed it as us falling out to their social worker. Despite me making it clear that's not the case from my POV. I had a baby as a result of an affair and now his wife is reaching out to me. I'm so stupid. I, female 26, had an affair with a married man, male 42 a few years ago. I had no clue he was married when we first met and hooked up. I obviously looked him up on social media, and while he did have photos of his kids on there was absolutely no mention or photos of a wife at all. I found out that he was married about a month after we first got together, but he told me it was just a marriage on paper and that they basically lived separate lives and agreed to remain married for practical purposes until the kids were older. They owned a business, which she really ran and he was just financially involved in. I knew at the time that I probably shouldn't believe him, but I convinced myself it was true. I was in my early 20s and so attracted to him and I guess almost infatuated with him. He made me feel so good. I know now that I should have ended it immediately, but I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I was addicted to all of the attention he gave me, the great sex, the places he'd take me. I felt special. I was so naive. I got pregnant about a year into seeing him. I had always been so careful with preventing pregnancy, but during my relationship with him I took stupid risks. I was so high in lust with this guy, it's embarrassing. The things he'd asked me to do, I'd say yes to almost anything, even when I knew it was a bad idea. I was in love with him, or I thought I was. I hadn't intentionally wanted to get pregnant. I would of course dream about being his wife and having a family, but I knew that wouldn't be a possibility while he had this arrangement with his actual wife. I didn't get pregnant on purpose with any intention of him leaving her for me, even if I wished that we could be a real, normal couple. I was surprised by how excited I was to be pregnant with his baby. I wanted that baby once I found out I was pregnant. The thought of carrying this baby of the man I loved was so special to me, but I knew he probably wouldn't feel the same. I told him I was pregnant and he told me I couldn't keep the baby. I expected his reaction, but I was devastated and it hurt me to my core that he didn't feel the same way I did. He offered to pay, to make a whole weekend of it somewhere exciting, what the F, and to buy me something special if I'd just please get rid of the baby. He explained that he didn't want any more kids and that he couldn't openly be a father to another kid when he and his wife were still pretending to be happily married to the outside world. I agreed to do what he wanted and we made plans for him to pick me up and find somewhere out of town to go get it done. I was all packed the night he was going to pick me up, but I started to feel really scared and really unsafe about the whole thing. I took my bag and checked myself into a hotel to hide because I couldn't go with him. I texted him to say I promised to never contact him again and to never name him as the father or go after child support if he'd promised to leave me alone. At first he tried to sweet talk me into doing what he wanted. When I didn't cave in, he said some very nasty things to me and that I essentially better never contact him again or show up at his door. I have a 2-year-old now. At times, it's been difficult, but overall we are thriving as best we can. I have kept my word about not naming him as the father or requesting child support. His wife contacted me on social media. Well, she's his ex-wife now. She wants to talk to me. She found out about me and told me that she divorced him 6 months ago. She wants her children to know their siblings and for my child to know his siblings. That's weird to me. I haven't responded back to her yet. I am unsure about how to approach this. How do I respond to this? I wonder if I'm being selfish by not exploring an option for my child to know his siblings, If she's being genuine about that. If I was married and my husband fathered a child outside of our marriage, I don't think I'd feel the same that she does. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I didn't know he was married when we first got together. I acknowledge that I should have ended the relationship as soon as I found out he was married. I allowed myself to believe what he told me, which made it seem not so bad. Like this was some sort of agreement he and his wife had. Emotionally, I was already hooked. I'm not making excuses. I wouldn't say I was happy to bring a baby into this situation. There was a huge mix of emotions. I felt like I was in love with him, so there was a part of me that was excited at first. That feeling soon died, but I still felt that I loved my baby still. I tried to do the best thing that I could, which was to remove myself from his life and his family's life. I just wanted to be able to keep my baby and love my baby. I did not get pregnant on purpose. I wasn't on birth control. I had been on birth control when I was slightly younger and had life-threatening health complications as a result. He knew I wasn't on birth control. He loved unprotected sex. I was stupid and I agreed to do it. I would do almost anything he asked sexually. I tried to track my cycle and would tell him when it was probably not a safe time to do it. His wife isn't really what I'm afraid of. Whatever she'd want to say to me is probably deserved anyway, and more. Comment 2. He found out about the pregnancy before I ghosted him. And upon finding out I was pregnant with his child, there was absolutely no real discussion about what we were going to do. We were going to do what he wanted to do and he had it all planned out. He threatened me, by text and by phone calls and voicemails, when I told him I was not going to go with him on this abortion vacation he had planned. I begged him to please not force me to do that and he turned mean. I offered to never contact him again if he'd just let me go. After threatening me again, about what he'd do if I didn't keep my word, he agreed. He has kept his side of the bargain and has never contacted me. Comment 3. I've been assuming that she found out about me on her own, maybe saw something on his phone or computer and has probably known for a while before reaching out to me, if it's actually her. I get what some people are saying about siblings and such, but that man is not my child's dad. He is the dad of his older kids, but he's not the dad of my kid. I'm still young and I hope to have more children one day, and those children would be my son's siblings. I hope to find a man who loves me and my son and with whom I can have a legitimate relationship. I haven't been with another man since I ended things with this guy. I actually just went on 2 dates for the first time very recently. I'm not desperate to find a man right now, but I hope to find real love one day. Those people are not my son's family. He's 2 and they're old enough to drive. So I don't think they're missing out on any sort of important relationship right now. I understand wanting to know your bio family, and I feel he can decide that later on when he's old enough to have a day. Depending on where we are in our lives at the time, he might not feel a need to know those people. I don't plan to lie to my son about his conception, but I don't think we need to involve ourselves with the man's ex-wife and teenage children at this time. Update 1. I made a post 3 weeks ago and things have only gotten stranger. I had an affair with a married man a few years ago. I regret it and I will never do anything like that ever again. I knew it was wrong from the very beginning, but he captivated me. I was naive. I allowed myself to believe when he told me they were pretty much just married on paper for the sake of their kids. I got pregnant and while he tried to talk me into getting an abortion, I ultimately decided to keep the baby. I have a 2-year-old little boy now. I promised this man that I wouldn't expose our affair and I wouldn't formally identify him as the father or request child support. I did that because he was becoming very nasty about the whole thing and I felt like due to the mess that I had created and the way I felt by the end of it, a clean break with no involvement with him would be the best thing for everyone. I moved back to where my family is, hundreds of miles from where he and his family live. About a month ago his ex-wife reached out to me via social media, claiming they had been divorced for 6 months and that she wanted our children to be able to know each other. Now their kids are teenagers, so I didn't really think they'd want anything to do with the toddler and the woman their father was having an affair with. It seemed odd to me. After posting here, I sort of decided that I wouldn't respond to her. I'd just ignore it. She just sent me one message, so it wasn't as if she was badgering me about talking to me or meeting me. On Friday night, I decided to message her. I don't really know why. I think it was really just for my sake so I could have the chance to apologize to her. I told her that I would be more comfortable speaking with her face to face since I couldn't trust that it was really her. She said she understood. I was too nervous to meet her in person, but we did a video chat. I didn't know what to expect, if this was all a ploy just to unleash her fury on me or what. I mean, I deserve that. She wouldn't be wrong to feel that way. It was really her. She told me she discovered our affair when she found communications between the two of us, after our relationship had ended. She told me I'm one of many women he had affairs with over the years and she knew about somebody even before he met me, but she didn't divorce him at the time. Finding out about my child was the final straw for her. I told her I was sorry for my relationship with her husband and admitted that I knew he was married. She graciously told me she forgives me and that while she harbored a lot of anger towards me initially, she ultimately blames her husband. I'm not blameless, but she chooses to not hate me, essentially. She said she couldn't have said this 6 months ago or a year ago when she first found out about me, but she has moved past that. She still has anger toward him, in addition to many other emotions surrounding him. She started pouring out her heart to me about their 20-plus year marriage and life together, and it was very awkward because what do I even say? Her kids know about me and my son. She says they're very mad at their father. Somehow I don't think they're mad about the fact that he's not involved with my son's life. And why would they be mad about that? I would hate myself if I were them. I told her that with my son being so little right now, I don't really feel comfortable with him meeting her kids or being involved with their family. I feel unsure about it and it's just not something I feel needs to happen right now. Then she told me her ex-husband was in a bad accident 2 months ago. He's fine now, still not allowed to return to all his normal activities just yet, but will be fine. He is probably the most physically active person I've ever met, barely ever seems to sit down. So he must be terribly annoying to be around if he's not allowed to go all the time. She told me he wants to meet my son. Apparently she moved back in with him temporarily when he first came home from the hospital. She said the accident really shook him up and he has been expressing a lot of regret about my son, not being involved, not providing for him. So now it's like, was everything she said just a lie and he somehow got her to reach out to me on his behalf? And she actually did it? It felt almost like a relief talking to her initially, but then it's like, was any of that true or you were just trying to be his messenger? I don't even know if that part is true now. Why wouldn't he just contact me himself? I'm just feeling so uneasy about the whole thing now. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I don't believe I have to involve his teenage children in my son's life. Maybe when my son is old enough to decide if he wants that. He is not named on the birth certificate and I do not receive child support from him. I have asked nothing of him, except to let me move away and not try to force me to have an abortion. I basically had to promise him to not contact him, not make him as the father, not request child support. If he truly wants involvement with my son, he can reach out to me directly and he can take the legal route to establish himself as our son's father. Comment 2. He did not legally sever his rights. He never established rights in the first place. He has no rights until he goes to court and establishes himself as the father. He is welcome to do that. Honestly, I wish my son did have a father who was involved in his life and loved him. Yes, this guy has faults, but he has plenty of positive qualities. He is really involved with his older children. I met them many times because they'd be at work with him or he'd have to drop by the office on his way to take them somewhere. He was always doing things with them. They seemed like good kids who really loved their dad. I wish my son could have that experience too. I didn't think it was an option based on how he behaved when I was pregnant. He wasn't interested and wanted me and our baby to go away. That's what I did, and I accepted it. Comment 3. He is not legally my son's father at this time. This means that currently he has no legal parental rights or responsibilities regarding my son. I cannot stop him from taking the legal steps to establish paternity if he wishes to do so. He will always be my son's biological father. I can't change that fact. Regardless of whether or not he ever legally establishes paternity, my son will likely be curious about his biological father and who knows, maybe they will establish a relationship one day regardless of legal paternity. There is no way to say if I will meet a man who may want to adopt my son one day, thus becoming his legal father. It's something that I think would be nice, but nothing that I'm intent on doing. By choice, I've only been on 2 dates since my son was born and that was only within the year 2024. I realize that it will not be as simple as signing a piece of paper. Update 2. I posted about this a few months ago. To summarize very quickly, when I was fresh out of college I had an affair with a married man and father. I became pregnant. He wanted me to get an abortion. He had arranged to take me away on a vacation, to get an abortion. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I agreed to go along with what we wanted. At the last minute, when he was on his way to come pick me up, I told him I couldn't go through with the abortion. I just really didn't feel comfortable about his plan and how he was orchestrating everything. It scared me. I realized at that time how deep I had gone with this mistake, how screwed up the whole relationship was. He was really mad. He threatened me, said a lot of nasty things to me. I told him if he just left me alone and let me have my baby, then I'd leave him alone and wouldn't name him as the father or seek child support. I moved back home, I was living in a different state when I met him. I kept my word and I didn't name him as the father or seek to establish paternity. I have never sought child support. My child is 2 now. A few months ago his wife contacted me via social media. At first she made it seem like she wanted my child to have the opportunity to know his siblings. It was sort of weird since the siblings are teenagers. She said she had divorced him 6 months prior. I agreed to talk to her virtually, not in person. I felt that I owed it to her to apologize for what I had done. I do feel bad about it. But at the end of the conversation I told her that I didn't feel it was the appropriate time to connect my son with her kids. He's a toddler and in their teens, plus I had promised her husband to stay out of his life. That's when she told me that he was recently in a bad accident and she had been helping to take care of him. Supposedly he was going to be fine and was fairly recovered at that point, but she said he had expressed interest to meet our child. So she was basically his messenger. I have not been in contact with her since then. I deleted my social media. I don't know why, but the whole thing just really made me uncomfortable. Since I last posted here. Then I received a handwritten letter from him. In it, he expressed how he wanted to get to know our son, he wants to be a father to our son, he wants to provide financially for him, he'd like us to come visit him. He asked me to sign a paternity affidavit. I refused to do so. I know he is my son's father, but I'm not going to make this that easy for him. After the things he said to me and threatened me with, he at least has to work for this. At that point, my parents felt that we needed to meet with a lawyer. All communication from me has gone through a lawyer. I have never responded to him personally, directly. Now I have a court order for paternity. I have to present my son to have a specimen taken tomorrow. I already know what it's going to say. It's not that I don't want my son to have a dad in his life. It's just, the whole situation is a mess. And he lives a few states away from me. I don't know what to do. I can't really do anything. He's doing things legally. Next, I'm sure he'll petition for some form of custody or visitation. He's not married anymore, supposedly, but he's a lot more established than I am. He has considerably more financial resources. I also know he has all sorts of connections where he lives. Luckily, they don't hold as much weight here in my state, but it's still so scary to me. I'm a bad mom. I brought my son into this world knowing it was a messy situation. I just got so comfortable with it just being the two of us, and now I don't want to give that up. Relevant comments OP on if the father would be moving closer to her and her son now that he's divorced from his ex-wife. OP answer, to touch on just a few things. I don't think he'll move away from where he lives. He has way too much established there. He's in his early 40s. I don't know how this supposed accident, if that even really happened, has affected him, but he was incredibly physically active when I knew him. He only slept like 4 hours a night, took a 20-minute power nap daily, and rarely ever sat down. He was also highly involved in his children's lives. I'd even say overprotective, like a helicopter dad instead of the typical helicopter mom. Careless_welder_4048, how did he have time to cheat? OP answer, he only slept a few hours a night and moved at about 1,000,000 miles a minute. Everyone joked about it. Somehow he always had time to get up at 5 a.m., go surfing, do some work, take his kids to school, do some work, take his power nap, get coffee, pick his kids up after school and take them wakeboarding or some other sort of thing like that, do some more work, be at his kids' basketball game and so on and so forth. He literally never ever stopped. I was just another thing to help fill out his calendar to prevent him from getting bored. OP on the father's relationship with his ex-wife and their children. OP answer. I also don't think he and his wife had much of a relationship, although it wasn't quite as he described it to me. They lived in the same house, but I believe they lived pretty separate lives. He bought her a business to give her something to do and keep her busy. She was there most of the time. They didn't even go to their kids' activities together. He was always the one going. So I think that freed up time too. I don't think they liked being around each other, so she was happy to have him out of the house. She admitted to me that I wasn't the first affair he had, and she knew about most of the time we were together. Another update on how stupid I am, or I had a baby as a result of an affair and now his wife is reaching out to me. I won't rehash the whole thing here. My previous posts are on my profile. I got pregnant from an affair with a married guy. He wanted me to have an abortion. I decided I didn't want one. He turned mean. I promised to not name him as the father, legally, or to pursue any sort of child support. I moved away from where he and his family were located. I'm about 12 hours away from him now, back where my family is from. I haven't reached out to him in over 3 years since. His ex-wife reached out to me out of the blue via social media, initially claiming she wanted to connect with me so that our kids could know each other. When I politely declined for the time being, as her kids are teenagers and my son is a toddler and we live states apart, she revealed she was really reaching out on behalf of her ex-husband who had supposedly had a change of heart about being involved in our child's life after nearly dying in an accident. I did not engage with her any further after that. It all made me feel very uncomfortable. Later, I received a letter from him in the mail. He asked to be involved with our son, to provide for him, etc. It still felt weird. I mean, he turned really mean and didn't want anything to do with me or our baby and hadn't made any attempt to contact me in years, and I was not hiding. His wife was obviously able to find me on social media and you can find my address online. I felt like if he was serious, he'd take the steps to establish paternity legally. And that's what he did. Around 1.5 months ago we were ordered to submit DNA samples for a paternity test. It took around 5 weeks to find out what I already knew it'd say. But now things are stalled for another several weeks for the next step in the court process. I haven't talked to him at all during this whole thing. I didn't respond directly to his letter. I do have a lawyer and everything is basically going through him now. Then without any warning, he just showed up at my home last weekend. Just knocked on the door like it was nothing. Basically, this is his son and he doesn't want to wait another 6 weeks for the court to inevitably order us into some sort of custody mediation anyway. His words, "Why can't I just talk to him?" I told him he made me uncomfortable and him just showing up at my house really made me uncomfortable. Honestly, I don't know what made me so uncomfortable. The fact that he showed up unannounced like that, or the fact that I instantly felt the same attraction to him that I had when I was with him and I didn't want to feel that at all. In some weird way part of me felt happy to see him and then another part of me was disgusted that I was happy. He said he doesn't understand why we can't just talk about this. He's not trying to take my son away from me. He just wants to be involved in his life and to help provide for him like he should have been all along. He's sorry he wasn't there when he was born. He's sorry he reacted the way that he did when I didn't go along with his plans to take me on an abortion vacation. Why can't I believe that he just wants to be a dad to his kid? I guess I agree with him. Why can't I just accept that he has had a change of heart? I can't trust myself. I can't trust my own judgment. I feel like if I easily let him into my son's life, I'm going to end up regretting it and be made a fool of somehow. I've already made so many mistakes when it comes to him. He says it's stupid of me to not try to work it out amongst ourselves first. I'm giving so much control to the court. I don't know whether to believe that or to think it's just his way of convincing me to do what he wants. I know he will get some sort of visitation and eventual custody. Maybe it would be better if we try to come to an agreement, but he had the ability to sway me so easily. I'm so stupid when it comes to him. Nobody else has ever made me feel so foolish in my life. I want my son to have a dad. I admit it's probably selfish of me to want to keep him away. I just keep imagining having to spend weeks or months apart from my child while he's living with his dad 12 hours away and I can't stand the thought of it. I'm just feeling sad, stupid, and defeated. Relevant comments OP on if the father is actually divorced from his wife. OP answer, I checked the county records and they did actually get divorced. Mammoth_Mite 8171. At this point you need to trust your lawyer. Hopefully he is a good one. Make sure that your lawyer has all the facts, including how poorly he treated you when he found out you were pregnant. Do not communicate any more with your ex, especially since you know that you're incapable of making good decisions when he is involved. You may need to prepare yourself mentally that your ex is eventually going to play a role in your kid's life, as much as that sucks. Hopefully you can go after him for back child support. OP answer. My lawyer has any and all information that I possibly had to share. I am already preparing myself that he will likely have a role in my child's life. I mean, the change will be difficult for me and I honestly don't want anything to change. But I'm trying to focus on any shred of positive outcome this could have for my son. He deserves a dad. I wish it wasn't in this situation. I wish I had given him 2 loving parents in a stable relationship, the ideal. I wish I had at least given him a father who didn't live states away. I feel bad that my son has 2 lying cheaters for parents. I truly do feel so embarrassed about our behavior in a new way I did before, ever since my son was born. Other than that whole thing and the fact that he's apparently had affairs with multiple women according to his ex-wife, he actually seems like a good dad to his teenage kids. He was always very involved with them. I guess I'm just trying to cling to whatever positive things I can think of. He can also provide a lot more financially than I currently can. That's scary for me because I'm already turning it into some sort of competition between us in my head. Several points for him, none for me. Plus my son is also very shy. He doesn't do well if me or one of my parents isn't there with him. I'm just now getting him involved in more activities with other kids and safe, trusted adults, but he still just clings to me. My heart breaks when I think of him meeting a strange man he doesn't know and me not being there. I want to be there. Plus I think that's how things normally go for him, and to be perfectly honest, that's how I used to be for him too. Just go along with what he wants. He was obviously expecting me when he showed up in person. He genuinely seemed surprised I didn't cave into his request right on the spot. The previous version of me probably would have. OP on how the father managed to find her address. OP answer. He sent me a letter in the mail previously. I googled myself and my address came up easily. Admittedly, I made no effort to hide myself after moving away. I didn't think I needed to. He had no interest in being involved with our baby and I promised to never contact him again. So I thought that was the end of it. His ex-wife told me he was in a bad accident when I talked to her. It's not too surprising based on his hobbies. He lives at like 200 miles per minute. According to her, she had to move back into their house to take care of him while he recovered. When he showed up here, he didn't look like somebody who had been in a life-threatening accident not too terribly long ago. He told me he's fully recovered, and although he'll probably have back issues the rest of his life, he's perfectly fine. OP on having a visitation plan with the father for her son. OP answer. My lawyer says that other than creating a graduated visitation plan based on the fact that my son doesn't know this man, the fact that he hasn't been involved in his child's life for the last 3 years won't mean much to the court. Their ultimate goal is for a child to have 2 parents. I screwed myself over by not naming him as the father at birth or trying to establish paternity in any way. Had I done that and he fought it, neglected to pay court-ordered child support, etc., then we could have a better case as far as abandonment goes. He is putting in the effort to establish paternity now, is willing to pay child support, so he says, and is presumably going to tell the court he wants to see his kid, and this is going to reflect positively for him, despite not being involved for 3 years. New update. Since everyone got mad at me for posting a recap of my situation in my previous posts, I won't even go there. If you're interested in the backstory, you can read my previous posts. All I will say is that I have a 3-year-old son who was conceived in an affair I had with a married man. After initially making me promise to not contact him, to not name him as the father, and to not request child support, my child's father has been pursuing involvement in our son's life over the last several months. He lives states away, and most recently he showed up at my house to try to convince me to work things out directly with him. Since the last time I posted, we've recently had a mediation session and he's met our son twice. At this time, he will have supervised visitation, with me present. Because he lives states away, he is required to come here to see our son. It will not be on a weekly basis due to the travel. He will see him during 2 weeks of the month, 2 times each week, for a total of 4 visits a month plus 2 video calls a month. This will last for 6 months. The next step will be for him to continue that schedule, but to have unsupervised visitation during which he cannot remove him from the area, for another 6 months. After a year, we agreed to have another mediation session to determine next steps, with the goal, his goal, of being able to have my son at his home for short overnights. I'm not even ready to discuss that. He's already suggesting I can come for the first few times. I don't like the sound of it at all. We also have the option to request another mediation before 1 year, and something tells me he's going to pull that. I also have an order for child support. While he is in agreement with paying child support, it will have to work through the court system before becoming official and for me to start getting the regular payment. He wrote me a large check in the meantime. I was hesitant to accept it. Not that I don't think my son deserves it, but now I'm just always worried I'll say or do the wrong thing legally, completely unknowingly, and shoot myself in the foot. Like, am I obligating myself and my son to anything by accepting this check? Can he somehow spin this against me? Of course he was not in favor of the 6-month plan, and while he does understand that my son should not just go off with a stranger upon first meeting him, he wishes we could speed it along a little more, but 6 months was what we were able to agree on. He wanted to fly us both to where he lived so he could spend a week or 2 getting to know our son, but I don't feel that's appropriate at this time. Perhaps in a few months, or around the holidays, depending on how things are going. It would be too much too soon. The initial 2 meetings went pretty much just as I thought they would. My son is extremely shy. He wanted to hide behind me most of the time. Then when he would venture out from behind me, as soon as his dad would say anything to him, he would scurry back behind me and just stare at his dad blankly without saying anything. He came out of his shell a little bit, however he has still not said a single word to his dad. He just pretends like his dad isn't there and only talks to me. I will say that his dad is being patient and understanding as far as that goes. If he's frustrated, he's not showing it. He did suggest that maybe our son needs to get out more, go to daycare more of even preschool instead of spending so much time with me and my parents. He's very delighted with how much our son looks like him and how much he favors him over me. The one thing that did bother me is that I already told him I wanted to be very careful and mindful of how we informed our son, this little barely 3-year-old boy, that this man complete stranger is his dad. He said sure, yeah. Then at the first meeting he introduced himself as dad. Since then I've been trying to help my son understand. Like, you know how your grandpa is my daddy, this guy is your daddy. It's so surreal to me that any of this is happening. I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm waiting for something to blow up in my face. Now it's just working on accepting our new reality. All of this change is hard and confusing for my son, and it's hard for me. Unless he really fucks up, I'm looking at eventually shared times with my son, spending school breaks and holidays at his dad's house, hours and hours away in another state. It won't happen tomorrow, but it will happen in the most likely reality. I just hope he stays committed. If he can be a good dad to my child, then my child deserves that, no matter how sad sharing him makes me. If he breaks my son's heart, that'll be another story, and I won't accept that so readily. Relevant comments. OP on the times when her son has to go visit his father and what the courts are deciding on. OP answer, they haven't ordered him to visit his father in his state, but eventually, that will probably happen. Talking elementary school age. Worldly promise 675. I hope it all works out as well as it can given the circumstances. Your son and his well-being is definitely top priority. The baby daddy seems really pushy and doesn't like boundaries, so it does not seem he's changed much. OP answer, he's used to getting his way. I'm doing my best to not just roll over but also learn to compromise. Imolela, are you concerned that he may also try to push the idea of reconciling romantically? It sounds like you are focused on your son and he's focused on getting his way. OP answer, I don't know. He hasn't really given me that impression. He's given me compliments. He's tried reminding me of some of the good times we had together. But I see that as all part of his schmoozing to just get me to do what he wants, not to get back together with me. OP on getting a therapist for her son. OP answer, yes, I'm working on finding a therapist for him. I realize I should have started that process before this all went into action.